House resumes and debate continues. Yes, I recognize Honorable Kozia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to fully support the budget before the Honorable House, and do so because it reflects the vision and efforts of a progressive leader, the diligence of a cadre of cabinet colleagues, along with numerous public officers across various ministries. I must say that it is indeed a distinct honor for us to serve our country in arguably one of the most difficult times in recent history. The Honorable Prime Minister's 2021 budget address was presented under the theme, The Road to Dynamic Dominica, Fostering Economic Resilience. The relevance of that particular theme to guide our development during the last financial year in pandemic conditions cannot be underestimated. This year's theme also expresses the fundamental philosophy of the government to ensure the nation is guided on the safest path to prosperity. This year, our departments at the Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization and Kalinago Upliftment will draw on $41.86 billion in the current budget before this Honorable House. Environmental coordination and policy and management of forest, wildlife, and parks will draw on a total of over $13 million. Employment, the NEP, and constituency empowerment will draw on over $16 million, and Kalinago affairs will draw from $8 million. My presentation today, Mr. Speaker, is a very condensed report of last year's achievements and the prospects of the new financial year to battle the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Speaker, I must admit that the Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization, and Kalinago Upliftment stuck to our task. This is due to the support given to by everyone at our main office, at the Financial Center, and at other locations. P.S. Fagan, A.S. Cabin, Sebastian, Thomas, Hunter, and all the wonderful administrative staff, coordinator honorary at the NEP and the staff, and a team in the Salve constituency, Development Officer Frederick and the staff of Kalinago Affairs in the Kalinago territory, Mr. Regis and project officers of the Constituency Empowerment, General Manager and staff of Dominica Solid Waste Corporation in Roseau office, and at the landfill, and our across our beautiful country, Director Wilson, Forest Officer Andre, and staff at the Wildlife and Parks Division on Valley Road, and national parks all over our country. I also beseech the full recovery of Mekif George and other staff members who are unwell at the moment. I also want to, Mr. Speaker, acknowledge the support of our local and regional and also international partners like the CREED, ODM, Department of Environment from Antigua, UNDP, the World Bank, IOM, DCF, GEF, UNDP, and others. Mr. Speaker, under the specific environment section of the ministry, I would like to highlight the Forestry Wildlife Division and the work done in the area of environment coordinating. Last financial year, the Forestry, Wildlife and Parks Division was tasked to strengthen our national forest resources and watershed resilience through post-Maria restoration reforestation projects. This has generated employment in the rural communities close to the targeted areas because there's a demand for expertise in forest and related fields, building contractors, skilled and unskilled labor in plant propagation, as well as increased sales to various hardware suppliers. Mr. Speaker, it is a national effort to inspire people to assist in the reforestation of all forests, abandoned farmlands, watersheds, and highways in the first instance, and also provides a means of income within the communities across the country. Mr. Speaker, 8 nurseries have been completed and plant propagation has commenced. A total of nearly $600,000 have been expended on contractual engagements and for the purchase of tools and supply from local suppliers. Mr. Speaker, at least 40 individuals, 16 of whom are women, make up the nursery staff from the communities in and around the nursery areas, Capuchin, Bells, Grande, Davis, Melvin Hall, Concord, Soufriere, and the 1 mile areas. Today, the nurseries have produced over 150,000 plants, and the community mobilization and distribution of plants have begun in the northern, central, eastern, and southern forest ranges with the community-based organizations, village councils, the NEP, schools, churches, private landowners, and NGOs. Mr. Speaker, the reforestation and beautification program also assists in raising the tourism profile within and around communities, particularly with the advent of new hotels and resorts, thereby increasing revenue to community members and allowing for sustainable development. Mr. Speaker, the environmental benefits include the minimizing of the negative impacts to our national forest resources, protection against landslides through slope stabilization, decreasing the impact of flash floods, increasing support for Dominica's biodiversity through re-establishment of habitats and food sources, decreasing air, land, water, and noise pollution, and motivating Dominicans to respect and support the sustainable development of the island's forest sector and environment by extension. Mr. Speaker, the Forestry Division also continues to generate some revenues for the state by regularly selling plants to the wider community. Mr. Speaker, trails and facilities and ecotourism sites were rehabilitated and routinely maintained by park unit field staff and other trail workers during the last financial year. This includes 1, the reconstruction of a small bridge and rehabilitation of the trail bed at the Trafalgar Falls, construction of 2 viewpoints to include steps, drainage along the trail bed and work on the Kalinago trace along the exit of the Emerald Pool, construction of flights of steps, vegetation management and rehabilitation of steps at the Midland Falls, and drains from the intersection at Cochrane. Installation of signage with COVID-19 guidelines for trails and national parks at the entrance of the Emerald Pool, Freshwater Lake, Berry Lake, Trafalgar Falls, Cabot National Park, Midland Falls, Syndicate, and the Boiling Lake. Mr. Speaker, installation of 2 bridges were done at the Berry Lake Trail, installation of 3 railings at the viewpoints and directional signs at the Syndicate Trail, and rehabilitation works is nearing completion along the Boiling Lake Trail. Mr. Speaker, the last fiscal year brought great challenges to the user fee system. All 12 major national sites were closed for the entire year, resulting in very little income. Total revenue collected for the period stands at a little over $17,000 compared to $285,000 in previous year, 2018-2019. Mr. Speaker, we have had numerous collaborations with agencies like the CREED, the World Bank, the Green Climate Fund, the Global Climate Change Alliance, the Global Environmental Fund, the United Nations Development Environment Program, to name a few. Mr. Speaker, we will continue a number of undertakings this year at the Forestry and Wildlife Parks Division. These will include plant propagation work at the 8 nurseries and the state-of-the-art nursery at Poncasse funded by the DVRP, national mobilization of volunteers, 4-H clubs, groups, etc. Rehabilitation of trails and facilities at eco sites. Mr. Speaker, also the upgrade of the WNT, White Scuba National Trail, research and environmental monitoring programs, engagement of salvage operators at the Forest Reserve at Blue Gommier, Simpa and Loda, sale of fallen trees to the public, and also environmental awareness programs. Mr. Speaker, we are well on our way to becoming the first climate resilient country. The Supporting Sustainable Ecosystem, or the SSE, and the Low Carbon Development Path, the LCDP, projects with both Global Environment Facility Fifth Replenishment, or GEF5 funding initiatives, which have added value to our mission. The SSE project of over $4.63 million ended on April 14, 2021. There were several successes, even in the face of the COVID-19. This was due to the ministry's understanding of the importance of our rich biodiversity in Dominica and the positives that can be derived in maintaining a healthy environment and sustainable livelihoods for people living near the Mount Tabitha National Park. And so we were determined to achieve the project goals. We now have the following: the Speaker, a forest biodiversity inventory, drone technology and drone operators, protected area systems management plan, amendments to protected area legislation, establishment of a buffer zone for the Mount Tabitha National Park, a data sharing platform for protected areas. We also have the observer status from the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund and human resource development to various workshops. Mr. Speaker, the project also provides employment opportunities for approximately 30 Dominicans for periods ranging from 1 week to 18 months. Local consultants were engaged, Mr. Speaker, to provide a native perspective to the effort so that the work produced would suit the social and environmental background of Dominica. Mr. Speaker, the Low Carbon Development Path, the LCDP project, installs solar PV systems at 6 pilot demonstration sites, replace fluorescent light tubes with LED lights at the financial center, and build capacity in the energy sector. These interventions, Mr. Speaker, cost a little over $1.11 million. The solar PV sites are as follows: the Dominica Infirmary, the Monroe Emergency Operations Center, the Sensi Community Center in the Kalinago Territory, San Silver Primary School, the Isaiah Thomas Secondary School, the Portsmouth Secondary School. Mr. Speaker, the systems can be monitored wirelessly for maintaining purposes. This also allows for monitoring of the amount of energy being generated, amount being used, and the greenhouse gas emissions. This will help set a precedent for reporting against our SDGs. Moreover, Mr. Speaker, end users received training on basic operations and maintenance of these PV sites. Mr. Speaker, in addition to the PV installations, the project also engaged in energy efficiency activities. We replaced fluorescent bulbs with LED light tubes at the financial center as well. This change resulted in a reduction from each 4-bulb unit using 158 watts to using only 14 watts. This work is still ongoing. The thermostats for the HVAC systems are being changed to Wi-Fi thermostats to better control and monitor the system. Mr. Speaker, the project also provides support to the Dominica Bureau of Standards by training 20 individuals on the CARICOM Regional Energy Efficiency Building Code. This course was an intense week-long event with 2 of the individuals being trained as trainers of this course. Mr. Speaker, all participants received a hard copy of the code at the cost of a little over $11,000. Mr. Speaker, the project closed with 3 virtual workshops. 1, opportunities, risks, and policies for low carbon transition. We seek with 19 participants from various government departments. 2, good practices in solar installations for technical folks. And financing models of solar PV and energy efficiency applications with a focus on energy performance contracting. Mr. Speaker, rural modernization speaks to all progressive transformation within our rural communities all across the country, which affects both the physical landscape and human lives. Mr. Speaker, the DVRP, the Disaster Vulnerability Reduction Project, the National Employment Program, the Constituency Empowerment Projects, and the works of the Solid Waste Management Corporation all contribute to this movement. Mr. Speaker, in the last budget, the DVRP was awarded 51.7% of the total budget, approximating $61.8 million of the ministry's allocations to facilitate a strong response to Pillar 1 of the Disaster Resilience Strategy, referred to as structural resilience. The blended portfolio of projects contributes both directly and indirectly to the ministry's wide-ranging portfolio and the country by extension. Mr. Speaker, as part of the continued efforts to meet the objectives of the projects, noteworthy achievements were realized in the last financial year despite the immense challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Speaker, project implementation in a pandemic environment required agile approaches to management and delays caused by related restrictions, such as the closure of borders and the inability of consultants and contractors to travel. Although the commencement of several sub-projects were affected, we recorded one of the most productive years, and I'm therefore delighted to summarize the main accomplishments. Mr. Speaker, 1. The completion of the new Dominica Meteorological Services Office building at Jimmy, valued at over $2.83 million. 2. The installation of the National Hydrometeorological Network to the tune of approximately $2.85 million. Partial completion of the Forestry nursery facilities in Port Arthur, the contract valued at $1.27 million. Completion of the National LiDAR Topography and Bathymetric Survey, amount to investment of over $1.9 million. And the contract award and commencement of civil works, the Castle Bay Covered Crossing, with investment over $400,000. Mr. Speaker, the establishment of the Livelihood spatial data sharing platform, well over $500,000. And Mr. Speaker, the commencement of civil works, phase 1 of the East Coast Roads project, segment 2, Wadiam to Castle and segment 4, Castle to Hatton Garden, and associated supervision services. Investment in this project to date is over $134 million. Mr. Speaker, I would like to briefly highlight our flagship project, the rehabilitation of the East Coast Road. This is because these roads are vital to our development agenda, since they will serve as the artery through which the economy of the East pulses. These roads will absolutely link local producers to markets, community workers to jobs, students to school, and the sick to hospitals. Mr. Speaker, in the end, our project will definitely work in tandem with the international airport, providing the access to and from our unique natural features and the tourism sites on the East Coast, from Pegua all the way to Delice. Mr. Speaker, allow me to use a bit of my formal training to discuss the East Coast Road. Mr. Speaker, the rugged topography of the island has made the construction of roads extremely difficult. It has therefore always been a challenge for every administration to connect communities with each other throughout our history. Mr. Speaker, to best appreciate the East Coast Road, or the Boadiab to Hatton Garden Road, it is important to understand some of the background to road building in Dominica. In colonial Dominica, a central method of road maintenance began in 1856 with a road tax known in Creole as a toivo. It meant that everyone over the age of 16 had to work on cleaning the roadways for 3 days each month without pay. Road wardens were appointed in each district to supervise the work, and the people who were not inclined to work had to pay a tax of 2 shillings a year. Special taxes, Mr. Speaker, were eventually put in place in 1888, and a Department of Public Works was established with an official chief engineer at its head. At that point, Mr. Speaker, serious road construction began. As a result of our many rivers, cast iron bridges were imported and shipped around the island pass. These bridges were bolted together to span the largest rivers. Although they required constant upkeep and painting, most lasted more than 100 years, well into the 1980s. Mr. Speaker, the engineers at the time had to take difficult decisions in planning the best routes to take. It was common to have plans changed midway through a project as some unexpected obstacle was confronted. At times, Mr. Speaker, money ran out and projects were delayed for a number of years. The weather was also a major factor, Mr. Speaker. And so, for example, an extra rainy season would wipe out months of work overnight. This resulted in the loss of major financial investments. Mr. Speaker, the history of roadworks in Dominica have many such stories. Mr. Speaker, along with the ruggedness of the landscape, the complicated nature of the island geography dumbfounded engineers over the centuries. In addition, our many rivers and streams further complicated the task. The soil types were not a major factor, Mr. Speaker, because they vary almost from every ridge depending on the type of volcanic debris that was ejected from the central volcanoes which dominate the backbone of Dominica. Mr. Speaker, in 1918, the Chief Surveyor, Walter A.D. Alport, told a commission of inquiry into roads into Dominica, and I quote, "Where it is more difficult to make roads than Dominica. With the heavy rainfall and natural features of the country, it is impossible for the government, with the means at the disposal, to keep the roads in a better condition than they are at present." End of quote. Mr. Speaker, it was only in 1961 the new Labour Party administration led by the then Chief Minister E.O. Liebler began one of the most ambitious projects undertaken in Dominica. This was to connect one end of the East Coast to the other, from Dalis in the south to Hatton Garden in the north, and to link all East Coast communities to Roseau by motorable road for the first time. The established roads, such as the present one from Hatton Garden to Portsmouth and the so-called Imperial Road from Kenfield to Pocasset, followed Kalinago trails and were built by pickaxe, shovel, and wheelbarrow without heavy earth-moving equipment. Mr. Speaker, the East Coast roads followed completely new surveys done by the late state engineer, Mr. Carol Winsky, and the young Dominican engineer, Wendell Lawrence. Mr. Speaker, the East Coast Road was built from Wadzia to Cascos. The financial records for this construction exist, and it is remarkable compared to today's prices. The road was built with grant money from the British Colonial Development and Welfare Fund, CDMW. Each project had a code, Mr. Speaker, and the Wadzia to Cascos Road code was D3557, and it cost $804,062.42. I am sure, Mr. Speaker, that we could not build 1 mile of road with such money today. Mr. Speaker, today works are progressing on the oldest part of Dominica, along an ancient ridge that runs from Pegua to Roseau. Mr. Speaker, the contract, the signing, and the commencement of works cost $126 million, and the associated fee, $3.5 million was done. Civil works commenced in April, and as we speak, the project provides employment to 79 locals who have been employed in various capacities: skilled and unskilled laborers, safety wardens, and truck drivers. From the onset, approximately $1.3 million have been spent locally to procure vehicles, which include an annual spin-off of over $65,000. Mr. Speaker, to ensure limited interruptions to access for road users, we have constructed 3 bypasses, one at Bellevue, one at Castle and one at Richmond. Mr. Speaker, the scope of works also include the replacement of bridges, the one at Livelihood, one at Bellevue, Castle Richmond River, and Pegua Bay. Mr. Speaker, there will also be the replacement, in some cases, extension of 52 culverts, 129 inlets, 127 outlets, and the construction over almost 30,000 meters of curb drains. Mr. Speaker, driven by government's thrust for national development by putting people first, over $2.86 million was paid to affected property owners along the 29-kilometer stretch of road, benefiting 306 individuals and by extension their families. Mr. Speaker, $1.7 million was afforded to the Kalinago territory towards the compensation of 438 parcels of land. In the Atkinson area and Trizzle, over $500,000 have also been paid to 93 landowners. Mr. Speaker, this brings government's total investment in the project to over $134 million. Mr. Speaker, fragmenting between lots on the basis of costs, Lot 1 contract value is $47.3 million, or 37% of the entire contract. Mr. Speaker, during this financial year, the DVRP will continue phase 1 of the East Coast Road, will complete and operationalize the forestry nursery facilities in Port Garçay, will complete and install and operate the Dominica's first fully functional hydrometeorological network, commence and operationalize the national seismic network, and commence soil surveys and mapping exercise, and make functional the spatial data sharing platform. Mr. Speaker, we continue to be mindful that the objectives of the project are to reduce vulnerability to hazard and climate change impacts in Dominica through investment in resilient infrastructure and improved hazard data collection and monitoring systems. Mr. Speaker, a significant amount of financial resources have been spent on the NEP. Mr. Speaker, this is because the government understands that the program remains a major contributor to the socio-economic growth and resilience of the Dominica economy. This year, we will expend at least $15.5 million. Mr. Speaker, on average, government contributes roughly $340,000 towards the monthly stipends of interns engaged at private sector institutions. This has allowed micro, small, and medium businesses to retain essential human capital and demonstrate economic resilience in the face of external shocks to the economy. Mr. Speaker, it is therefore important to highlight that many businesses would not have been sustainable throughout this pandemic period if the NEP was not part of their business model. Mr. Speaker, by providing gainful employment, the NEP empowers and improves the quality of life of young professionals and their families. This platform also fosters the strengthening of the economy through expanded opportunities to promote and expand the production of locally manufactured goods, which in turn increase the revenues of small and medium businesses. Mr. Speaker, it is important to highlight that more than 300 individuals have been able to secure temporary, active, or permanent employment. Mr. Speaker, this means that they have benefited tremendously from on-the-job training afforded by the NEP and were able to secure sustainable employment using the skills they refined from the training interventions. Mr. Speaker, in an effort to achieve a greater sustainability by reducing recurrent expenditure, whilst creating the potential for additional positions as more individuals enter the job market, policies are being put in place for more people to graduate out of the internship program and into permanent forms of employment. Mr. Speaker, the NEP impact on education over the years have proven to be extremely significant. The engagement of interns to provide tutelage for students who have difficulties in certain subject areas continues to contribute towards the greater level of literacy and numeracy among students at the primary schools. Mr. Speaker, this has proven to be very impactful because we all understand the correlation between levels of literacy and poverty. Mr. Speaker, the NEP's cleanup campaign and beautification component is unprecedented. Never before in Dominica has cleanup and beautification done at such a magnitude and with such consistency. Mr. Speaker, this contributes towards the health and wellness of the citizens, since a clean community and country are essential in reducing the spread of pests or rodents and vector-borne diseases. Mr. Speaker, the ongoing hurricane preparedness efforts, like a trimming of overhangs and the clearing of storm drains, gutters, ravines, and culverts by the community teams, ensure that the economic and infrastructural impact of storm, water, sea surges, and other natural disasters are minimized. This, Mr. Speaker, is essential to building a climate resilient community. Mr. Speaker, the capacity of our government to ensure that the NEP is sustainable demonstrates the wisdom and benefits of its fiscal prudence and effective economic policies. Considering the social, environmental, and economic impact of the NEP since its inception, it has indeed proven to be a pillar of support for the economy. Mr. Speaker, ongoing capital projects being implemented by the government, like the international airport, internationally branded hotels, housing developments, wellness centers, will also serve to create full-time employment opportunities for NEP interns and individuals seeking a job in the future. Mr. Speaker, everyone among us should understand the importance of solid waste management, because we benefit tremendously from the services offered by the Dominica Solid Waste Management Corporation. Mr. Speaker, despite the challenges posed by COVID-19, which resulted in a loss of revenue, the services offered by the corporation have not diminished. We have even seen a resurgence and a greater level of commitment from all the staff, like the refuse collection team and the litter crew in Roseau. Mr. Speaker, the best condolences to the Roseau team and the leader, Sweeney Felix, on her loss. Mr. Speaker, during the last fiscal period, the corporation embarked on countless activities at the national level, to include derelict removal, white goods collection, joint projects with the public and civil society, and the expansion of biohazard collection. The corporation have some achievements in key projects, like the Enhanced Natural Environment Project, the Community Waste Storage Improvement Project, and the Kalinago Zero Waste Project, and also Be the Solution, Stop the Pollution campaign. Right. Mr. Speaker, the core function of the Enhanced Natural Environment Project was to rid the island, or the entire island, of metal-based waste. So zinc, white goods, derelict vehicles, etc. Mr. Speaker, the program is continuous and has seen tremendous success during the past year with the removal of more than 625 derelict vehicles. Mr. Speaker, government understands the need for recycling and has committed grant funding in the budget cycle for the construction of a much-needed material recovery facility, or an MRF. Mr. Speaker, the Be the Solution, Stop the Pollution campaign is a flagship venture by the corporation. in conjunction with many private and public sector institutions that seek to achieve collective consciousness, corporate social responsibility, and reduction in marine litter. Mr. Speaker, the corporation will continue to have stakeholders consultation, will continue to erect billboards, will continue to clean a mile, and continue panel discussions. Mr. Speaker, over 25 private sector institutions have pledged support to the project in cash and kind, totaling over $87,000. Thus far, we have had panel discussions and 2 consultations were held on electronic waste and food waste in the city, along with the production of an anti-litter video. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the tremendous achievements by the Solid Waste Management Corporation, there remains areas for consideration and improvements, such as final disposal, designating the facility for bulky waste and scrap metal, specialized equipment, and a hazardous waste facility. Mr. Speaker, I would like to highlight the work done within the Kalinago community. In highlighting Kalinago upliftment as part of the ministry, I really begin to speak about a major section of the Salve constituency, which is the Kalinago territory. Mr. Speaker, the government of Dominica continues to collaborate with the Kalinago Council and the Kalinago community in its effort to transform the socio-economic landscape of the Kalinago territory. Mr. Speaker, this government understands a concept called free, prior, and informed consent, FPIC, which is a specific right that pertains to indigenous peoples and is recognized in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of the Indigenous Peoples, UNDRIP. In Dominica, Mr. Speaker, it allows the Kalinago community to give or withhold consent to a project that may affect us. Furthermore, the FPIC enables us to negotiate the conditions under which the project will be designed, implemented, monitored, and evaluated. This is also embedded within the universal right to self-determination. Mr. Speaker, during this financial year, we will draw on $8.12 million reflected in the Kalinago Emergency Fund, the Kalinago Development Fund, the Kalinago Agricultural Research Center, the Kalinago Multipurpose Center and Emergency Shelter, and the Kalinago Zero Waste Project. Mr. Speaker, we also have new projects. The strengthening sustainable livelihoods and resilience in the Kalinago territory, the community-based tourism cluster with the Ministry of Tourism, in agriculture, the modernization of traditional crops, inclusive of cassava, the housing recovery project, the tax center, and in education, the new Siniku Primary School from the People's Republic of China. Mr. Speaker, we have also benefited from national housing, and to be more specific, out of the 92 pre-concro homes, or the sustainable building solutions, 38 of those 92 homes have been built in the Kalinago territory. We are now on the way to constructing 50 homes funded by the European Union. The necessary roadworks have been in place. Mr. Speaker, the first-time homeowners, 16 out of 114 of those homeowners are from the Kalinago territory. Mr. Speaker, a series of post-budget discussions will be held to give more details of all those projects. Mr. Speaker, guided by the National Resilient Development Strategy and the Climate Resilience Recovery Plan, the government has invested in the construction of resilient systems and infrastructure that will propel economic growth and development within the Kalinago territory. The Kalinago Multipurpose Center and Emergency Shelter Project will build resilience and adaptive capacity to climate change and manage disaster risk and climate change impacts in the Salve constituency, which will further enhance the livelihoods and the sustainable development of the indigenous people of Dominica. Mr. Speaker, This will be demonstrated through improved knowledge. And
20 more minutes. 20 minutes.
This will be demonstrated through improved knowledge and awareness of disaster risk management, climate change adaptation, and gender equality practices, strengthen community governance, and improve disaster risk management and adaptive capacity to the impacts of climate change. Mr. Speaker, in 2019, the Ministry of Kalinago Affairs, the then Ministry of Kalinago Affairs, commenced discussions with Caribbean Development Bank to explore grant funding for the construction of this facility as a component of the project Building Resilience. In December, Mr. Speaker, 2020, the grant agreement was signed. Mr. Speaker, in October 2020, a contract was also signed for the preparation of final designs and the detailed construction documents in the amount of $320,000 and construction supervision $240,000. Mr. Speaker, in March 2021, the preliminary designs were presented to stakeholders whose feedback was reviewed for incorporation in the final designs. The revised designs were received from the architect in June 2021, and upon agreement with those designs, the government will move to the tendering stage. Mr. Speaker, we have partnered with the UNDP to strengthen the livelihoods and resilience of the Kalinago people. In brief, there will be a focus on strengthening livelihoods and capacity building for project lasting or duration of 1 year and 4 months. The project will strengthen the livelihoods and resilience of the Kalinago people by working with the government in delivering an integrated approach package of support to strengthen capacity. 1, boost agricultural production and sustainable agricultural practices, design and implement community reforestation programs, develop a comprehensive Kalinago tourism strategy, and also boost the institutional capacity of the Kalinago Council for improved participation and inclusive decision making. Mr. Speaker, there have been major efforts by our government since 2000, which contributed to a significant improvement of the quality of life of all people of the Salve constituency, including the Kalinago people. These initiatives include all aspects of housing, of the housing revolution, all aspects of the universal secondary education, the National Employment Program, all public assistance programs, sponsored state college education, the pit latrine eradication, small business and financing, and infrastructural development like roadworks, playing fields, and schools. Mr. Speaker, I must say that I hold the Salve constituency very close to my heart, even while understanding the differences between the two communities that make it up, the Kalinago territory and Atkinson. Mr. Speaker, I thank the members of the Salve constituency for their patience and understanding as we proceed with development work during the COVID-19 period. This year, Mr. Speaker, we will link Upper Badaka or the rest of the Kalinago territory to Andrizzle with the Pontopi Road, build an apartment block in Atkinson. It is also fair for most of the finance from constituency empowerment and the community development project to be focused in the area of Atkinson. And so I will work in collaboration with the Atkinson Village Council to undertake all manner of works. I will also work in collaboration, Mr. Speaker, with progressive people like Gregory Rabes, Doods, David Lavin, Liz Anderson, Sharon Dupini, and others to review all previous plans for the area. Mr. Speaker, I therefore thank all the folks from Sineku, Mao River, Wallet River, Sensi, Salivia, Kirish River, Badaka, Tuna, Atkinson, Waraka, and I'm grateful for the support. I also deeply appreciate the support of my family and the constituency branch and the executive and our LIO and LWO who understand the political journey. Mr. Speaker, a very special call out to the teachers, students, and parents of the Sineku, Salve, Atkinson, Lighthouse, and Concord schools for the great performance at the Grade 6 National Exams. Mr. Speaker, I also applaud the work of the Kalinago Sports Association and the Kalinago Eagles Athletic Club for keeping cricket and athletics alive and well in the constituency and for showcasing our talent on the national scene. Thanks, folks, for allowing me to be part and parcel of all your journeys. Mr. Speaker, I fully support the budget before this Honorable House because it replicates our commitment to responsibly serve our country during these difficult times. Thank you.
Before we proceed, I just wanted to just a short announcement. Permission is requested to be excused from this Honorable House by the Honorable Octavia Alfred, Minister for Education. Also, Honorable Lockhart Hippolyte, the member for Roseau South, also has to be excused. And 3 senators, that's Senator Ernie Lawrence John Finn, Annette Sanford, and Francisca Joseph, all has to be excused. Yeah. So we can proceed. Yes, Honorable George. Proceed.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make my contribution to this budget discussion today in support of a very transformative budget presented by the Honorable Prime Minister and our Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we have before us a budget outlining multiple new ideas and creative policies that touches all facets of the Dominican economy, all social classes, our youth, our elderly, the working class, and most vulnerable among us, our athletes, and also the public and the private sector. We have here a budget that all members in this Honorable House can relate to and point out numerous forward-thinking projects that will benefit all Dominicans. And just to say, Mr. Speaker, there has been tremendous positive responses and reactions to the budget by Dominicans from all walks of life. But Mr. Speaker, to really appreciate the contents of the budget, one must first be cognizant of the current economic and social environment and then match these circumstances to the various allocations contained in this budget. The fact is, all countries in the world continue to operate in a time when COVID-19 has had long-lasting impacts. And as such, what this budget here does is that it signals our continued fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, while at the same time creates avenues and opportunities for our citizens to restore and maintain their livelihoods, to improve on their social and economic standing, and to build their capacity and enhance their future potential. This is basically what this budget does, Mr. Speaker. And I'll take some time just to highlight some areas I believe is key for us to note today. As it relates to health, Mr. Speaker, by default, the health and the safety of every Dominican is our top priority, Mr. Speaker. And in my opinion, to develop an effective healthcare system, one must first factor in a number of critical areas. First of which is health infrastructure. And in that regard, we have seen so much investments into the construction and the upgrade of healthcare facilities all across Dominica. And this is done not only in the environments of the city, but also in our rural communities. And that is very commendable, Mr. Speaker. And even in a time when our revenues are down, we are able to complete 12 health and wellness centers, and we open additional centers in the new coming period. And I must say, one of the finest among the centers is located right in my community of Penville. Mr. Speaker, the quality of care. Again, this government has been doing wonders in that regard. An important requirement for quality is ensuring that the relevant persons are trained to give care. And a number of healthcare professionals, this administration has trained so many healthcare professionals, and it is extraordinary, Mr. Speaker. The cost of care, Mr. Speaker, healthcare can be very expensive, as we all know. And what we have done is we have removed the user fees implemented by the prior administration and made it possible for persons under the age of 16 and also above the age of 65 to access health care. And also we continue to assist persons who are unable to pay, or unable to afford health insurance, Mr. Speaker. Also, Mr. Speaker, we can speak of the wellness component of health. And we have implemented both fiscal and health measures to encourage our citizens to adopt healthy lifestyles, in particular, healthy eating habits. And then finally, Mr. Speaker, there's the administration of health care, particularly at our hospitals. And Mr. Speaker, this is being addressed in this new budget through the creation of a hospital authority that will be charged with the responsibility at ensuring that access and care is enhanced for our citizens. This is why I say, Mr. Speaker, that this government's commitment to health care has been nothing short of remarkable. We have been implementing our initiatives in the healthcare sector very strategically, and we are all seeing the positive returns from this. And in this year's budget, we see an allocation of $32 million, Mr. Speaker, allocated to the Ministry of Health for continuing the good work that the sector has been doing, Mr. Speaker. And this must be supported by all Dominicans. Mr. Speaker, as it relates to the international airport, I mentioned the words enhanced opportunities earlier, and these words are very fitting when one thinks of the construction of our international airport, the largest construction project to commence in the history of Dominica. A project that will see the creation of opportunities, not only for the residents of Wesley, but also for persons in neighboring communities and all communities for that matter in Dominica. And Mr. Speaker, this international airport has been long awaited. And I say long awaited because it has been documented that in order for a country to benefit or to maximize the gains from an international airport, the corresponding structures and systems has to be in place to achieve that optimum returns. And Mr. Speaker, I refer to stuff like excellent road infrastructure, you know, high standard accommodation, top quality healthcare facilities, a thriving private sector, enhanced connectivity and higher human capacities to take advantage of the new opportunities that will present itself. And Mr. Speaker, under this government, we were able to achieve all these things and more, Mr. Speaker. And as a result of this, now is the opportune time for us to build our international airport, Mr. Speaker. Just imagine a Dominica that fully benefits from all the direct impacts from an international airport, such as airline and airport operations, aircraft maintenance, air traffic control and regulation, and activities directly serving air passengers, such as check-in, baggage handling, on-site retail and catering facilities. Also the indirect impacts, Mr. Speaker, such as jobs linked to the aviation fuel suppliers, construction companies that build additional facilities, and manufacture goods that will be sold at the airport, and a wide range of other activities in the business services sector. So, Mr. Speaker, we are truly on our way to a more dynamic Dominica, where the buzzword is now opportunities, Mr. Speaker. We are building this new Dominica in a very prudent and sustainable and responsible manner, and our international airport is the centerpiece of this entire process. So I want to urge all Dominicans to take ownership of our international airport. Every single one of us will stand to benefit from the construction of the airport. $75 million in this budget is allocated to continue our vision to develop our international airport. That's progress, Mr. Speaker, and I want to urge the youth in particular to position yourself to take advantage of the opportunities that this international airport will provide. I also want Dominicans to take ownership of our CBI program. You know, our CBI has been a very useful funding mechanism for many small economies like us. Just look around, Mr. Speaker. Thousands of Dominicans now own homes through CBI. You know, hundreds of students have earned degrees because of CBI. A majority of our public sector investment projects, and now our international airport is funded by CBI, Mr. Speaker. We have settled medical bills for thousands of Dominicans with the use of CBI. So the CBI mechanism can be considered a lifeline for us here in Dominica, especially during these pandemic times. And anyone who cares about people and about Dominica will defend our CBI at every opportunity they get, Mr. Speaker. And I also want to put on record my commendations to MMC, our airport developer. MMC has been a very reliant and dependable partner in our development. And we see MMC has delivered from entire communities to single apartment complexes, Mr. Speaker. And I'm sure that MMC will deliver on our international airport. Mr. Speaker, government continues to value the contribution of our educators and the education sector on a whole. And to further demonstrate our commitment, we see an increase in the annual recurrent budget by over $1.2 million to fund a number of new positions as part of the new structure at the government schools. And our very hard-working Minister of Education have already expanded on this, but I would just like to add that we expect this new structure which includes 223 new positions to provide many benefits to our teachers by providing the opportunity for upward mobility, Mr. Speaker. And I think that is very important going forward. This is what this Labour government is all about, Mr. Speaker, ensuring that there's upward mobility for our teachers and our education. So I'm very happy for our teachers, Mr. Speaker, and I expect bigger and better things for education going forward. Mr. Speaker, it has always been the best time to be a student under this Labour government, and more so today. Never in history have we seen so much money being pumped into education, Mr. Speaker. The number of students we have overseas obtaining advanced degrees is just extraordinary, Mr. Speaker. And our commitment to our students from a very early age all the way to advanced levels is undisputed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this budget we are debating here today continues to support the development of agriculture, since we believe the sector still remains the backbone of our economy. And I'm sure that all of our farmers will feel comforted with what is in store for them in this year's budget. We will see a combination of initiatives aimed at increasing access to farm inputs such as seedlings and fertilizer and tools, and at modernizing our traditional crops such as the cassava and the toloma and the bay leaf, Mr. Speaker. We will also seek to enhance food security and rehabilitate critical fishing infrastructure, Mr. Speaker. $31.9 million is allocated to the sector, and this represents our firm commitment to the advancement of the sector even through this COVID-19 pandemic, Mr. Speaker. And just to say to our farmers, Mr. Speaker, with the construction of our international airport, we will have to produce more to meet the new market demands. And rest assured, our farmers, we will provide you with all the necessary guidance and the supplies and the inputs you need to produce more. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Prime Minister indicated that we are a housing party founded on the principle that every single Dominican should own a comfortable dwelling house. And I am in full support of our housing initiatives earmarked to continue in this financial year. just the pride of owning your own house, Mr. Speaker, it does wonders for a person and the entire family. Therefore, we have allocated $45 million to support the sector and our various housing interventions in a number of communities across Dominica. And Mr. Speaker, we have acknowledged that there may be young persons who want to build a dwelling house, but may just need a small push. So in the last fiscal period, we have implemented a grant of $10,000 that could benefit first-time homeowners 40 years and younger. And Mr. Speaker, so many of our young persons benefited from this, so much so that we took a decision to extend the measure so that more persons could benefit in this new financial period. And also the measure for the reduction in the transfer fees has also been extended, Mr. Speaker. And these actions are taken because we want to empower our young persons, young men and women, so that they can build their own house and be proud to say that this belongs to me, Mr. Speaker. So I congratulate all the 114 persons that benefited under this program, those who are going to construct their homes or those who purchase land with the intention to construct their homes. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the circulation of money in the economy, the construction sector stands out in that regard. So there's no surprise that the Ministry of Public Works received the largest or very significant allocation in this year's budget. This will provide for the continuation of numerous infrastructural projects and the commencement of other key initiatives. And our push to develop resiliency will continue as we move along our quest to build back better and stronger infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, another very important component of this budget presented is the emphasis that it places on the development of sports. Every athlete and sporting enthusiast should be comfortable with this budget, Mr. Speaker. In the last fiscal year, we saw a resurgence of sporting activities, especially in the city, which was championed by the member for the Roseau Central constituency. And this vibe, Mr. Speaker, has caught on to other parts of Dominica. Mr. Speaker, as a sportsman myself, I get super excited when I hear things are happening to develop sports in Dominica. And I know that it's not just me who gets excited, but a number of sporting persons out there just waiting to see what government has installed for them. In the last period, we have seen so many sporting facilities being constructed and playing fields being upgraded all across Dominica. And in the upcoming period, Mr. Speaker, our government will further commit to the establishment of a National Sports Council, which will stimulate and facilitate the improvement of sports in Dominica. Mr. Speaker, this is excellent news for sports in Dominica, a very progressive move by this government, which will give a bigger voice to the various representatives of the different sporting organizations. And importantly, Mr. Speaker, this Sports Council will be tasked with the responsibility to spearhead the development of a national sports policy, which I believe is so very important for the development of sports. And to top it all up, Mr. Speaker, the Council will oversee the establishment of a National Sports Trust Fund, which will be capitalized from the revenues of the CBI program. And this is another example of what we mean when we say the CBI mechanism greatly aids our development, Mr. Speaker. However, we will expect some support from our private sector. As you know, government can do it all alone, so we expect our private sector to come on board and support the trust fund and support our athletes, Mr. Speaker. I have played sports at the highest level in Dominica, so I know the challenges are there. I know that I know that the challenges our local clubs and our athletes face, especially when we participate in regional and international competitions. So this trust fund, Mr. Speaker, will go a very long way in helping our athletes. And my final point on this, Mr. Speaker, just to say that all these recommendations in terms of development of sports was as a result of a consultation with all the sporting organizations. We actually met with various entities, various sporting organizations, and also some athletes, and these were the recommendations posed to us. So I'm very happy that we could consider some of these recommendations. Mr. Speaker, it will be remiss of me not to highlight the recent increase in the minimum wage as of 1st September 2021. The fact is the minimum wage has not been revised for some time, and therefore we made it our duty to undertake a review in the efforts of just revising and publishing new rates. And I must commend the Minister responsible for Labor. He has really championed that effort, and I think it's important to highlight his contribution. But just to say, Mr. Speaker, the minimum rates established, it does not imply that that is the rate you should be paid when you work. It's just simply a minimum rate. And we on the government side, we would encourage that the private sector considers paying even beyond that rate. Most of them has already been doing that, Mr. Speaker, but it's something we will encourage that they pay beyond that rate. And this increase is very important, Mr. Speaker, because our workers in the agricultural sector, the tourism sector, the retail sector, such as our cashiers, our receptionists, our salespersons, the room attendants, our cooks, our security guards, the construction workers, and so much more. These are people who make significant contributions to our economy and the success of our private sector. And this government values their service, Mr. Speaker. Without them, the country may be faced with many more challenges, Mr. Speaker. So we need to empower these people and ensure that they receive a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. And that's just one way in which we protect the interests of these groups. And I believe that this increase in the minimum wage will go a long way in raising the standards of these persons in Dominica, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Dominica has been doing well, even when we are faced with numerous shocks and natural disasters. Our leadership sets us apart from the rest, and our love for people is evident by our empathy and our determination to improve quality of lives. And the empirical evidence paints that same picture, Mr. Speaker. Our Prime Minister and our Minister of Planning both outlined the main economic indicators which all hinted progress, development, and growth, Mr. Speaker. During the last financial year, we saw agriculture grew by 2.1%, while government investment in small and micro enterprises resulted in a positive manufacturing activity. And with growth expected in agriculture, construction, retail trade, we expect the economy to grow by 3.4% this year, Mr. Speaker. And we expect, as more persons get vaccinated, which is very important, Mr. Speaker, some of the restrictions will be lifted, and this will give momentum to our economy, especially as tourism begins to gain some momentum. So, Mr. Speaker, the numbers tell the same story that all of us on this side has been telling. The numbers definitely don't lie. The people of Dominica continue to benefit from the many programs of this government, and we are able to enjoy higher living standards. And consumption is high, evident by high VAT collections. Bank deposits are increasing, and this in turn allow our financial institutions to feel comfortable in lending to our productive sectors. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, persons are benefiting from our fiscal measures, which are all aimed to keep money in the pockets of us Dominicans, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 2 years ago, in the 2019-2020 budget presentation, the Honorable Prime Minister laid out the vision for the telecommunications sector in Dominica. He made a call to our fellow citizens to position ourselves for the advent of the impact of digital technology in a constantly changing environment. This phase was termed moving towards a digital economy. Mr. Speaker, some people's memory seems to be short when it comes to visionary initiatives in this country under this Roosevelt-Skerry-led administration. However, it is necessary for me to remind this Honorable House that it was only a mere 4 years ago, in September 2017, that every single telecommunication asset needed for communicating among friends, family, and the nation as a whole was either damaged, destroyed, or severely compromised. Dominica's telecommunication infrastructure was in shambles and had to be redeveloped and reconstructed from scratch. Despite this massive setback, Mr. Speaker, this government was determined to not only support the advancement of the sector, but act boldly and decisively by looking ahead at what can be achieved through focused, innovative, and visionary thinking for the betterment of our people. In this phase, Mr. Speaker, government's telecommunication infrastructure was being developed through a competitive bidding process into a truly 21st century design, which served as the foundation to launch our digital economy. We then entered into a next phase, phase 2, in the presentation of the 2020-2021 budget by encouraging all citizens to embrace technology for both resiliency and connectivity. During this period, Mr. Speaker, government worked persistently in bringing technology and broadband capacity to schools, to hospitals, to medical centers, the police and fire stations, and every government-owned entity within the public service. Never in the history of this country, Mr. Speaker, has technology been so pervasively integrated in our public institutions. Additionally, transmission facilities were buried underground where possible as a climate adaptation measure. Redundant systems are incorporated into the structural design so that even if traditional systems fail, alternative services can be provided, whether by microwave systems, information stored at data centers, or using cloud storage, architecture, or technology. And Mr. Speaker, the issue of infrastructure resilience and redundancy is in keeping with one of our key subcomponents of Dominica's Climate Resilience and Recovery Plan 2020-2030. The development of Phase 1 and 2 has set the foundation for the next of the continuing evolution and the advancement of the telecommunications sector, that is, closing the digital divide. This phase has been designed to build on the themes highlighted in the Dominica Labour Party's Dynamic Dominica Manifesto by focusing on industry diversification to complement other key sectors in the economy. It is the Ministry's belief, Mr. Speaker, that Dominica is well positioned at this time for its development to not only embrace technology and connectivity, but to position itself to take maximum advantage of the spoils of a truly technological and transformational world. The introduction of digital technologies in agriculture, in health, in commerce, in tourism, in housing, among other critical sectors. Just take, for example, Mr. Speaker, the impact that our world-class fiber network has had on attracting visitors to our Work in Nature program. No doubt, Mr. Speaker, without our significant recurrent investments in the telecom infrastructure, these very forward-thinking initiatives would cease to exist. Mr. Speaker, I would like to focus the remaining portion of my presentation on initiatives that were implemented and avenues that will be pursued by this government in seeking to bridge the digital divide and enhance access to information. Mr. Speaker, when we speak of the digital divide, we describe the uneven distribution of ICTs in society. The digital divide encompasses differences in access to, affordability, and the usage of the internet between various socio-economic groups within a single nation state. Over the last 12 months, Mr. Speaker, government's effort at minimizing the digital divide has focused heavily on community access through Wi-Fi systems and robust broadband internet service. The key here, Mr. Speaker, is the reliability of the broadband service to all citizens irrespective of the social status or economic standing. It's important to note, Mr. Speaker, that through the Universal Service Fund, we were able to introduce reliable fixed broadband services to a number of communities where these services were absent since the passage of Hurricane Maria. These communities include Good Hope, Mr. Speaker, Saint-Sauveur, Petite-Soufrière, Bagatelle, Stowe, Rivière-Syriac, Montjean, Huetica, Delicis, and of course, Penville. Commercial services commenced in these areas in March 2021. And this simple yet important action now opens up a world of opportunities and possibilities from enhanced communication. And Mr. Speaker, I particularly want to highlight two very small but important areas. One, a small hamlet called Ogen in Penville, and another hamlet called Lahu. And these two very small hamlets, never before was there fixed broadband in these areas. And because of the support from the USF and the partnership with the operators, we were able to introduce fixed broadband here in these two areas. And what these interventions do is that they increase our overall broadband penetration rate, Mr. Speaker, which is such a critical determinant of the success of our digital economy, Mr. Speaker. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, work is ongoing in the Kalinago territory on a similar approach. Phase one, which is the development of the Wi-Fi solution, is nearing completion. The PAREP, Mr. Frederick and his team has been really providing some good leadership and support in the whole process. And just to say, Mr. Speaker, our overall vision for the Kalinago territory is to transform the entire region into some sort of smart community, first of its kind in Dominica. And when I say and when I say smart, we will ensure that all schools have full connectivity, that all tourism sites have connectivity, that there's free Wi-Fi for young persons to access, that there's a stable fiber connection at people's homes, that of course we have a number of devices to our students. There'll be backup systems, a community web page that you could access anytime you enter the Kalinago territory. Of course, a center for distance learning, and a platform where our farmers could log on and market and sell their produce, Mr. Speaker. And the list goes on, Mr. Speaker. I believe that this approach is the best for the Kalinago territory, and we are already on our way, Mr. Speaker, in that regard. And when you add the benefits outlined by the PAREP in terms of the housing interventions, and of course the East Coast Road, and of course his baby, the Kalinago Development Fund, and among other initiatives, Mr. Speaker, I believe that the Salibe constituency may well be the new capital of the East, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, another component of our overall strategy for closing the digital divide includes internet-enabled devices that meet the needs of users. Once again, Mr. Speaker, this government has been consistently investing in providing educational devices to our students, not only to provide access to the internet, but to ensure continued learning mobility to thousands of students across Dominica. In the last year, only in the last year, Mr. Speaker, we have distributed thousands of devices which seeks to enhance students' overall learning experience. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, government is working in collaboration with the International Telecommunications Union under a global program called GIGA, with the main aim of connecting every young person to information, opportunity, and choice. And the ministry will work in close collaboration with the Ministry of Education and, of course, the Ministry of the Digital Economy on this very important intervention. And key to achieve our desired outcome is to enhance the social and digital inclusion by expanding digital skills, Mr. Speaker. And I'm sure that our Minister
for the digital economy will expound on this and highlight some of the achievements we have been able to make. Mr. Speaker, government's vision to develop smart centers in geographic areas nationally will continue in the new financial year. Some of these identified centers were placed on hold given the priority placed on residential connectivity in the peak of the COVID-19 crisis. Nevertheless, we believe that this concept will complement our push to enhance access to services, in particular distant learning services. So we will resume our efforts on the centers already started, while we will seek to add centers in Grand Bay and also in Castlebrus in the upcoming period, Mr. Speaker. We recently opened centers at the Dominica State College and also at the Portsmouth Secondary School, working in close collaboration with the Rotary Club of Canada and its affiliate in Dominica and also the Ministry of Education. And this is just a taste of what can be achieved when there's effective collaboration, not just amongst ministries, but among government and also the civil society persons, Mr. Speaker. And just to say that we all should play our part, since these services cannot be considered a privilege, but a fundamental requirement for everyday living, just as transportation, roads, and bridges, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are all aware that despite our best efforts at providing services for use by citizens, the requisite legislative framework must be in place. This is essential not only to provide the technical specifications, the policy rules, norms, and standards, but more importantly for enforcement and remedial actions which must be taken to ensure that all stakeholders are treated fairly, that the service providers provide quality service, and that the regulators can conduct their functions in a fair, non-discriminatory, and transparent manner, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the telecommunications sector has been governed over the last 20 years under the Telecommunications Act number 8 of 2000. This act has served us well. However, the time has arrived, Mr. Speaker, for the advancement to the next stage of our development. A time where everything is about data, with the likes of over-the-top services such as Facebook, Google, Amazon, Instagram, among others. We are in a new and transformative era, and as such, Mr. Speaker, we have worked with all stakeholders to compile a new piece of legislation for the industry called the Electronic Communications Bill. Mr. Speaker, this new bill will replace the existing Telecommunications Act of 2000 with major emphasis on competition law, on anti-competitive behavior, and net neutrality issues in an effort to meet the ever-increasing trends in the industry. The bill is accompanied by the Bill of Incorporation, which gives legal effect to the legislation in Dominica, together with 13 other pieces of legislation ranging from interconnection to tariffs to the universal service and roaming services, Mr. Speaker. Over the next coming months, the Ministry will engage in local consultations at the community level in order to inform all our citizens on how this bill will impact them and the importance of this bill and the implications for the service providers. It is anticipated that the EC bill will be passed in the House before December 30th, 2021 in order for Dominicans to enjoy the many benefits under this new piece of legislation. Mr. Speaker, the ministry responsible for telecommunications has been exploring options as it relates to the issue of data billing as a new billing model for government and our regulator. Mr. Speaker, to achieve our vision of 100% connectivity, access to communities need to be paramount. However, massive funding is required. Data billing, Mr. Speaker, is one novel way of which government and the regulator can bring relief to consumers and citizens in rural and underserviced areas. Mr. Speaker, we are convinced that there must be a proper manner to analyze and audit all outgoing and incoming international traffic in the country and use this as a basis for informing regulator fees. Mr. Speaker, we are all aware that consumers are charged a certain dollar amount per unit of data. And by leveling this unit cost, Mr. Speaker, all stakeholders will have an opportunity to benefit in a win-win scenario. Service providers will be reporting and paying for exactly the amount of data they receive. Consumers will benefit from both fair pricing and greater service quality. Regulators will be able to obtain a fair revenue to support underserved and underdeveloped areas, while government will also obtain its fair share of its fees. Mr. Speaker, more details on this will be forthcoming in the months ahead. Mr. Speaker, one of the many technologies which greatly facilitates connectivity is satellite technology. The use of satellite technology, Mr. Speaker, can quickly and easily provide both rural and urban centers with a broadband type service in quick time when compared to our traditional technologies such as fiber and Wi-Fi technologies. Mr. Speaker, there has been discussions with a major world-renowned satellite company to provide internet services commercially to ships and aircraft which passes through Dominica's marine spaces. Mr. Speaker, this would be a major benefit not only in terms of revenue generation, but more importantly, Dominica will be sold as a major international satellite gateway for the provision of telecommunication traffic in the region. Additionally, in the event of a natural disaster in similar magnitude or scope as Hurricane Maria, the deployment of satellite communication using special user terminals will be life-saving. Importantly, Mr. Speaker, the ability to provide aeronautical and maritime internet services would be a major complementing factor to our international airport being currently built. Mr. Speaker, emergency telecommunication has been placed on the front burner since it is critical in our efforts to become the first climate resilient country in the world. Earlier this year, the government of Dominica partnered with the International Telecommunications Union to develop Dominica's first national emergency telecommunications plan. During this process, we held a consultation led by an ITU emergency telecommunications expert and attended by many local stakeholders from the private sector and public sectors, the academia, civil society, and non-governmental organizations. The National Emergency Telecommunications Plan sets out a strategy to enable and ensure communications during the mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery phases of risk management. And what this plan does, Mr. Speaker, is that it maps out exactly what all sector players should do in the event traditional telecom services are not operational. This includes service providers, our ham radio operators, our utility companies, and all stakeholders that are directly or indirectly involved in communications. This is critical to ensure communication following disasters, since during this time, every second counts, Mr. Speaker. The draft copy of the plan has already been circulated among all stakeholders, and it is anticipated that the final plan will be formally submitted to government on or before August 15, 2021 by the ITU. Mr. Speaker, my ministry holds the responsibility for broadcasting. Our goal is to provide timely, factual, and reliable information to the public on the promotion of government policies and projects using multiple platforms. Mr. Speaker, DBS, our nation station, and GIS are equally responsible for educating, sensitizing, informing our very engaging and interactive target audience. And while there may be room for improvement, Mr. Speaker, the improvement and broader optics of technology advancements, I am happy to report that these two important institutions have achieved significant milestones over the last 12 months and continue to set very high standards. And I express my appreciation to the chairman of the board, Mr. Rosie Mills, and the other board members, and also the general manager of DBS and staff members. Mr. Speaker, our reporters, cameramen, and news reporters at GIS continue to be very diligent and afford us the opportunities to sit in the comfort of our homes and get all updates on government's activities. Furthermore, improvements were made to the staffing structure, with young people who were employed through the National Employment Program now being rewarded with employment contracts both in the administrative and the technical departments of GIS. And Mr. Speaker, this is consistent with our vision to transition our interns to full-time employment, and I subscribe to this very passionately, given that I myself started as an intern under the National Employment Program. We have developed the GIS Pulse, which is a tri-weekly electronic newsletter highlighting weekly government activities and achievements. And it's our intention in this new fiscal period, Mr. Speaker, to introduce the video version of our Pulse going forward. Mr. Speaker, we will continue the digitization process to ensure that quality and content is achieved. The service reaffirms its commitment to provide reliable information to the general public. And now, with our increased level of connectivity, more persons around Dominica will have the opportunity to tune into GIS and be informed. And I just want to thank the Director of GIS, Mr. Daryl Titt, and all the hard-working staff at GIS. I am very grateful, and I'm sure that the members of Cabinet also very grateful for the contribution. Mr. Speaker, so much is happening, and will continue to happen in Dominica. And I want to take a few minutes to zoom in to my very own community of Penville, and by extension, the Vekas constituency. I am convinced that the people of this part of Dominica is some of the most appreciative and supportive people anywhere in the world, Mr. Speaker. Many community infrastructural projects are now ongoing. I can speak to a number of returning walls, multiple drains in Lower Penville, roadworks in Vekas, and the complete resurfacing of the road at Thibault with asphalt, Mr. Speaker, and many other interventions. Although they are small in scope, they continue to provide employment for our people and ensure that there's money circulating within the constituency. And this has been the model in the Vekas constituency, Mr. Speaker. We continue to meet the needs of our elderly in the constituency through various social programs such as the Yes We Care, the Over 70 Allowance, our NEP, Mr. Speaker. And just under our NEP, we spend close to $50,000 every month just in Penville alone, Mr. Speaker. And we all know that our NEP continue to do a very good job in the entire constituency, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the Vekas constituency will continue to receive its fair share of the housing pie through new home construction and housing repairs. Just this week, in Cabinet, we approved the acquisition of a portion of land for housing development for residents in Vekas. We have also identified lands in Penville to develop a similar housing development, and homes will continue to be built for our residents in Thibault. Mr. Speaker, I am satisfied that the entire constituency now has connectivity, and this in itself will greatly facilitate learning and develop more opportunities for our youth. And this is complemented with ensuring that our secondary school students each receive a personal device. Some works will also be done on the Thibault and the Vekas playing field, as well as a construction of a multipurpose hardcut in the community of Penville, for which lands have already been identified, Mr. Speaker. And this hardcut will be improved. We will have bleachers, benches, Wi-Fi, lights, very, very forward-looking hardcore for the young people in Penville. And with the improvement of works on both playing fields in Tebow and Vickers to include lighting, Mr. Speaker, and this will coincide with the construction of the Tebow Primary School, Mr. Speaker, so we can see a total transformation in the community of Tebow. Mr. Speaker, I believe that we will focus on some farm access roads in the constituency. One of these access roads is the Fombele access road, which we have already given commitment to undertake. And soon, as indicated earlier, we will see the commissioning of our new health and wellness center at Lower Penville, which will definitely boost access to quality health care in Penville. Also, we will officially open our new resource center at Vickers, and it will be named in honor of our deceased Power Rep, Mr. Alexis Williams, Mr. Speaker. And I'm sure that everybody in Vickers will be in agreement with this. And Mr. Williams is very highly regarded by our current Power Rep, Mr. Speaker, and I find it very fitting that this resource center will be named after deceased Alexis Williams. And just to say, Mr. Speaker, at the Vickers Resource Center, we have already identified a section to develop a studio because we have recognized that, you know, we have great talent in the constituency, and this is something that I believe the youth will be very appreciative of, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we will also ensure that our hardworking farmers continue to benefit through the provision of irrigation. And as I'm on the issue of irrigation, I'd just like to point out two very young farmers in the community of Penville, two farmers which I highly regard, young hardworking farmers, which make use of the irrigation which was constructed just last year. And Jesse Masley and Mr. Sheldon Roye, I believe that these two guys has been set an example in Penville as it relates to farming, Mr. Speaker, in terms of producing peppers and supplying peppers to Portsmouth and supplying to some of the hotels, Mr. Speaker. And I believe these two young guys, you know, should be recognized for their efforts in farming. Mr. Speaker, many of our youths are attending universities abroad, and we continue to remain in contact with them to ensure that they succeed. And I want to congratulate in particular Dr. Vilma Luis from Carib on completing, on becoming a doctor. And I know that she has reached out to our Power Rep and thanked him for his support. And I believe I just want to recommend or to identify her, Mr. Speaker. And just to say that Miss Weiss is also the sister of Mr. Vincent Weiss, which is currently in Grenada playing cricket, representing the Windward Islands in the best of best competition and doing very well. And I'd just like to commend him for his efforts there, Mr. Speaker. So a lot is happening in the area, Mr. Speaker. As I indicated last year, we work within a well-developed and well-thought-out development framework, which also includes the empowerment of our youth, the empowerment of women in particular, small business development, and also increasing employment opportunities for the entire constituency, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, in closing, I would like to express, you know, my sincere gratitude to my hardworking staff, in particular the Permanent Secretary, Miss Gloria Joseph, Miss Joseph wears multiple hats, and I believe she wears all these hats with distinction. And so I just want to commend Joseph. I also want to commend the efforts of our Director of Telecommunications, Mr. Thomas. You know, Mr. Thomas, he has his unique ways, but he means well, and he's very hardworking. And also the other staff of the ministry, I want to commend them, the staff of DBS, the young staff at GIS, and the entire ministry team who normally, or gives me support on a daily basis in the implementation of the mandate of modernizing the telecommunications and broadcasting sectors in Dominica. Of course, none of this would not be possible without the support from you, my cabinet colleagues, and also parliamentary colleagues, This is greatly appreciated. The overwhelming support I received from the Honorable Prime Minister and our PIREP continues to inspire me to go the extra mile for each and every single Dominican. And I believe we are blessed in Dominica to have such a tremendous leader in Roosevelt's carrot. And to everyone in the Vickers constituency, let's continue to push ahead. We have been achieving a lot together, but there's a lot more work to do. And by the grace of God, we will achieve these things together. And whatever we put our mind to do, we will achieve. Unity is strength. Your support is what drives us to work and work and work on your behalf. So, Mr. Speaker, just to say to end, I wholeheartedly support this budget as presented by the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister responsible for finance. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Catherine Daniel.
Mr. Speaker, I stand here today to give my unwavering support to this 2021-2022 budget. A budget which really epitomizes the will of the people, a people who without fear chose this Dominica Labour Party government to manage the affairs of our dear land, creating for all a dynamic Dominica. And Mr. Speaker, my constituents stand solidly with their government, their party, their leader. That's right. My contribution is premised on God's words as proclaimed in Luke 12:48. For everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. This Labour Party government, Mr. Speaker, is fully aware of this expectation, thus this visionary budget. My contribution, therefore, will remain within the parameters of my constituency specifically, and how we fit and appreciate the Dominica Labour Party's government direction for a dynamic Dominica in spite of global challenges, specifically the COVID-19 pandemic. I urge Dominicans not to be disturbed by the display of the opposition, but focus on the dynamism of this budget. Mr. Speaker, we in the Collio constituency are thankful for the projects designated to our constituency in this budgetary period, with an estimate of $993.6 million. And so I will outline for my people what it is that is there for us, how we fit in, how we benefit from this budget. The first thing they call the whole wall. There's an allocation of $3 million for this project, a project to be implemented in phases. There are 2 phases, maybe 3 phases, but in the first phase, a $1.5 million is to be expended in the 2021-22 budget, with the remaining $1.5 million for the 2022-2023 period. An overdue project, we may say, given the devastation caused by Tropical Storm Erica and Hurricane Maria in our constituency in May 2017 and 2015, both as a result of the river's course. But God is always on time. We know that those who wait upon the Lord shall mount up with wings like eagles. That's right. Mr. Speaker, the river's course over the past decade has seen a flow into the village, breaking the low wall structure that we had and entering the village. Cultural and generational knowledge seems to point to the fact that the river is always looking for its original course, thus this happening. We are, however, thankful for the Almighty, for though we have seen or experienced infrastructural damage and property devastation, lives have been spared. And I think maybe only for Hurricane Maria, we lost one person, and that body was found way down in Matnik, washed away by the river from his garden. And that was the only human devastation that we had. So it was a blessing given what happened to us in 2017. Mr. Speaker, I want to inform this House that work is ongoing on part of the wall in the Kalinago River to save the property and lives of some families residing around in the area. An intervention costing in the region of $280,000 and carried out by local people, the local human resource. And I have to thank the guys, they've doing an excellent job, Monson and his crew, Monson Sap and the crew, and they worked really fast. As you traverse to go to Portsmouth, you look by the bridge that you enter in Kalinago, and you will see the work, the pride, and the quickness, the pace at which they were, knowing that we are in the hurricane season and what could happen to the families which live above. So I just want to say thank you. I really must express my heartfelt thanks to the Honorable Cassani Laville and his Permanent Secretary, Mr. Piatroy. Mr. Speaker, committed people. They're not only telling you that we have a project for you, they walk you through, they inform you, and the assurance they give you. These people are committed to the task. Not only, they don't see it as a job, but they just see it as God's maybe design plan for their life to fulfill things, to make people happy. And I just want to say thank you so very much. Mr. Speaker, in the same light, for the Dublin, during Hurricane Maria, we lost the bridge. It wasn't completely lost, but because of the situation in the river, they had to do some excavation. It was already falling, and so we lost it as a result of that. So Dublin has a river divides two parts. So you have the school, the health center, on the playing field on one side with other residential people, and then you have residents on the other side. And what this did was to create a kind of a fear for people, because it created one entry and one exit into the village. Again, public works. And at the time it was the now FS, Dennis Edwards, who was there. It seems as though the people, the permanent secretaries they bring into the public works department, they are a special breed. And I remember FS Edwards, she was then PS Edwards, coming to church in Dublin, and they had, it would be the easy way to traverse the bridge and enter the village to go to church, but they had to pass on the highway, and it was a long walk. Even when we thought of the children, and she said, boy, the children have to cross to go to school and pass on the highway. Then you had a person trying to cross the river with a child on her back when the river was raging, and the person fell in the river. And when this site was seen, FS Edwards, PS Edwards at the time, they decided no. Though we had some money for the bridge, but she said no, we have to do a walkway across. And so was born the walkway which existed, but it wasn't motorable. So I think now that the Dublin people are seeing the construction of the bridge, things happen, but it's progressing, and it's progressing well, and people are very, very happy and excited about it. And again, thank you on behalf of the people of Dublin for this project, PS Roye and Honorable Cassani Laville. Sports rehabilitation. Collio Plainfield. I was very excited when I heard the minister mention that there's work going on the Collio Plainfield. It's a slow process. We've been battling that for a long time, but something is happening. And there are some people who are working behind the scenes because we have been challenged, and that's our problem. Jack Gadakan, they did some work there, graded the field for us, but one of our challenges is topsoil, getting topsoil. I do not want to call any names at this point because they're still working on it, and somebody's working feverishly to get some topsoil, and I promised to help us in building that facility for our young people, because in Collio they do not have recreational facilities, and you do not want your children getting involved in deviant behavior. And this is a very, very needed facility. In fact, about 2 Sundays ago, with the graded structure, there was a rounders team, and I'm proud the Collio rounders girls on that field, they beat the Roosevelt Scarlet rounders team. And imagine if we had a better playing field. You know, at one point, you know, some of the guys say, remember, it's a friendly match you all are playing, don't go too hard on them. So, but we did beat them. In Dubla, the playing field is okay. That's where a lot of sporting facilities for sporting groups play. Dennis, sorry, we've beaten you all down there. Honorable Hippolyte, Honorable Charles Hippolyte also, we've taken advantage. So I want to say congratulations to the Dubla football team. We are now at the top of the Premier League standing with 36 points, but Honorable Hippolyte on our heels with the Happy Bathurst 8 team with 35 points, and it's a very healthy situation. We have a little fund there, which we have a little pavilion. We'll be fixing that up because the funds are in the village council. We're just waiting on some plans from the council so that we could, you know, spruce that up and make the place a really nice place. That's where a lot of the games take place. And, you know, so thank you very much, the Dominica Labour Party government, for, you know, putting this into the young people. I also have to congratulate the Dubla football team. There are 5 members on the team who were on the national team playing in Santo Domingo. Truly, we almost beat Panama, but we gave Panama 2 goals. I do not know why, but maybe our heart, our soft hearts, we were feeling sorry we gave them 2 goals. But they had a very good showing. You have to sometimes cushion the blow. They had a very good showing, and I think they played professionally. And I want to tell these guys, I am still behind you. We are there with you, and we'll ensure that your sporting continues and that your playing field will be upgraded with the pavilion since the funds are there already. I can confidently assure the constituency that there will be benefits under the following allocations. As these allocations, Mr. Speaker, we see the budget, and every community is looking to hear its name. But what is happening this year? This is a different stance for that budget. The allocations are general in nature, and therefore takes into account the needs of the entire country, a government for the people. And so though it's not specified only in certain instances, but generally we have headings which will take into account the needs of communities. So don't be perturbed if your community name is not called, if you do not hear your village. Don't go after your parent and say, I hear nothing for this place. It is there. And so I will outline some of the areas where we will benefit. Now, housing. Under the housing renovation and sanitation, 3.5 million has been allocated for that. So this means the people who are still waiting to fix their little roof still, some of them, they have the roofs, but leakage, time, you know, doors, windows, we have helped in that area. But there are still some people waiting to fix their houses. We are coming to you. In fact, as we speak, there's some money in the Collio Village Council waiting to be disbursed to people who we assessed since in 2018. But the delay is some of the people went ahead and they carry out the repairs that they needed. But you must remember, it's not an entitlement, that the assistance that government is doing. So if we had your name in 2018 and you carried out the intervention, we will not refund you. We will pass it on to somebody else who needs it, and that is how the government operates. So I just want to tell people we'll be getting that. Under the National Resettlement Program, there's an allocation of $4 million. Again, my people, you are part of this plan. Not because you didn't hear the name Dublin, Bioche, or Colihu, but this is a general disbursement for people, and that goes, as I said already, for all other communities. So under the housing, we have the Platma Pier housing scheme. We have, we have land all about. We too, we need help. But we are a patient community. We are a patient community. And our priority down there, we really support the Labour Party fully. So we won't make noise and if it will wait, because good things come to those who wait. Under the agriculture blue and green economy, an allocation of $350,000 is placed there for building resilient fish supply through modern technology. Mr. Speaker, this is a fishing community that I represent. Our fisher folk, they give back a lot. They supply the infirmary. When their catch is huge, they supply the infirmary, they supply the hospital, they supply the school. Mr. Speaker, they give back because government has been investing in them, and so that is their way of giving back to the country when they have a big catch. Especially the fisher folks from Dublin. This is just part of them. They do that, willingly. They give to the church, they give to, and just name it. And these are people, if somebody comes to buy their fish and they do not have enough money and they know this condition of the person financially, they won't say, no, my fish is so much you won't get. So I just want to commend them for the work that they're doing. Again, to whom much is given, much is demanded. And may God continue to prosper these fisher folks. Education. One of the sectors dear to the heart of our leader and many of us in this house is the education sector. The drive to create an environment conducive to learning was well articulated in the July 18th Anupali program, where PM said that, even if you're not getting a new school, but the environment will be created for that type of learning that we need. As you may be aware, the Dublin Primary School results in this year's National Assessment exam was exceptional. Mr. Speaker, they topped the island. Collectively, we're looking at as a school. They topped the island in 3 subjects, except in math, where they came 3rd. The mean score is 100. They were above that. The highest mean score above 120 passed the mean score. So they were 20 points ahead. I want to say again, congratulations to the school, the teachers, the children, the parents. The parents of Dublin, they support their school. And this is what you get when a community works together. That is what you get, good results. You see children on the road, you try to call and say, why are you on the road? Or shouldn't you be doing this? Shouldn't you be doing that? And Dublin they still have this principle of a community raising a child. And that is why we see all these results. I want to thank the principal, Ms. Joseph, the staff, the parents, and specifically Ms. Hippolyte for their dedication and commitment to their task. Mr. Speaker, the Kalinago School, though we did not receive scholarships and bursaries, but the children improved immensely. They had no grade of E or D at all in their profiles. So, and then it's not only, and I will say that to parents, never compare, I always say to them, never compare your child with another child. You look at the ability of your child. And once your child has progressed, that is sufficient. And give the child the encouragement so the child can do more. So that is why I really have to say to the Kalinago children, you all have done well. You all have done well compared to other years. We have a new principal, and I just would like, and she has a lot of plans for the school. How many more? What is it? How many more minutes is it? Thanks. Okay.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Honorable Catherine Daniel be given an additional 10 minutes to conclude her presentation.
I second the motion, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, everyone. So the new principal, she's there, and she has plans for the Kalinago School. We plans for a brighter tomorrow, and I kindly ask the support of the community and the parents specifically to be with the school because there's strength in unity. But before I move on, one of the things I wanted to mention for the Dublin School, the children are doing well, the teachers are dedicated, but this school needs a little attention in sprucing up the place. It's a little painting, the furniture is dilapidated. So if you all will help us, there's no telling. I don't know if we can go higher than top, but there's no telling what the children can do. So let's create that environment, that awareness for the children to really feel excited and come and work properly. In the area of health, very soon, we will see the opening of our Health and Wellness Center in Kalinago, an ongoing project, and I think we are very, 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 very thankful for that, Dr. Mark. This project is almost 95% complete. Now, I would just ask the people of Kalinago to take care of this facility. It is your community and will remain there, so be appreciative. I hear a lot of people already saying that they have to find something so that they can go and get care at that center when it is open. But be very careful. Don't go and enjoy yourself and things so. Light things. I know a lot of headaches will be going in there. And that, yeah, they're headed in or something. But it really has brought this kind of aesthetics to the village. And it's really a nice structure. And we appreciate this very much, and I just want to thank the government for putting us in the line, and specifically Dr. Darrow. I know when I was in the cabinet last time, he just kept telling me, you will get it, you will get it. And so it has arrived. So thank you. Under the constituency empowerment, I see an allocation of $500,000, Honorable Kozia, and which resides with your ministry, so we can look forward to some small projects in the community. It's not a community that needs so much. If we get our playing field, when we get the river wall, we have our health center, there'll be one thing we need, and that will be a little structure, small resource center, where we can house our post office, our village council, and have a place for little meetings, because we are handicapped in that area. So I'm looking forward to that. I want to also thank the minister for the NEP program that is going on. We have about 86 people under this program, bringing in a monthly amount of about $66,000. So that's more money circulating in the constituency. This Labour Party government has brought about massive transformation toward their country. The gap between the more fortunate and less fortunate is closing, as this government mission is to create in its people a sense of dignity and pride. 10 families in the Collier constituency were recipients of new apartments in the Platmapia area. The work is not complete, but Mr. Speaker, do you understand, or can you begin to understand the joy a family receives when you move from not having proper sanitation to modern facilities? From uncomfortable and restless nights to awakening to sweet dreams? From placing receptacles to collect rainwater inside your house, inside, to enjoying the sound of the rain on the rooftop and the view, very therapeutic. And can you fathom someone conceiving and entertaining a thought that the government should not engage in elevating people because this is handout, a basic human need, shelter? Mr. Speaker, the people at Platmapia are happy. I enjoy being there. It's just a nice place to be. But we have one little handicap. We always would like to have the moon with us, but you know the moon has a phase. And so when the moon is not there, it is very dark. And we have children living in the area, and I've been in conversation with the Minister for Public Works, who is a darling, always willing to help, and he said the lights are coming. They will come, they will get there. And as we are there, also the Kalinago school ground, because that is where we have meetings and things, and when it's late, the children they go to lessons, they have a little function, it's very dark in that area. So just those two areas for lighting, we would appreciate. Dominicans, you are looking for a government whose main goal is to move its people upward. Your choice was right in 2019. You gave us 18 past free, not free past 18. And then we have to maintain that 18 past free, because some people think it's free past 18 and they want to carry on as though 3 is greater than 18. So we have to be careful. This government was chosen to lead the nation, and lead it will. No weapon formed shall prosper. A third world country with first-class plans. A people-centered government, evident by the various measures, tax-free interventions. Mr. Speaker, rental property, you know what that means to people? Housing for the middle class, insurance on your mortgage, free. These are measures that are tangible to the common person, to the common man. And that is a budget, as people have said before me, for everyone. There's something for everyone in it. Mr. Speaker, the budget has clearly outlined the path for the disbursement of funds as allocated for various programs. We see the process of accountability and monitoring as ministries carry out their function. As we move forward in the transformation of the public service, greater autonomy is placed on the relevant ministries to deliver the programs identified. This is not business as usual. Times are hard, the world over, and every dollar disbursed must be a dollar well spent.
That's right.
So we see the social sector under the able Honorable Dr. King will deliver through the systems which exist in her ministry. So the public assistance program, the Yes We Care program, these will go through a process. And the staff of the ministry will be the one. So the systems will be working, and it's not the political will that will be they're delivering, as many people think. Small business, for example, through very viable programs identified by the ministry. It is not about getting an invoice anymore and submitting. We want you to have fruitful, sustainable, viable business ventures. Because what we want to create in our people is self-sufficiency, self-reliance, having held your hands and walk you through manageable processes, thereby solidifying our present and securing our future. Through the National Employment Program, which was created to be transitional, we will continue to provide the resources as seen in the budget. I am thankful for my people who are beneficiaries of this program. As I always say, no one will provide you free of charge with the financial benefits you receive every month from the NEP. Appreciate, learn to manage your financial resources, set priorities, plan, save. I must commend the NEP workers on the West Coast, from Fokole to Point Trong. Job well done. It's a job well done. Special commendations to my constituency workers and staff of the NEP. They're doing a great job. They take pride in what they do. They really into it. And even people who have subjects, I want a job. I say, but you have a subject, don't you want to? No, I just like this beautification program. That is the pride we have to instill in our people so that they love their country more and more. It would be remiss of me if I did not applaud the leadership of this Labour Party-led government for this bold step in building an international airport. Many have tried, many have intentions. It was the writer of the book Where Angels Fear to Tread, E.M. Forster, an English novelist, who wrote, and there's something before, you told me once, and Mr. Speaker, I quote, please allow me, you told me once that we shall be judged by our intentions, not by our accomplishments. I thought it a grand remark. But we must intend to accomplish, not sit intending on a chair. So, you take a loan intending to build an airport. What are the accomplishments? $140 million debt.
14%.
At 14%. Mr. Speaker, Dominicans, the airport is coming.
That's right.
What does that mean? To the third, Mr. Speaker, we figured it so far, but it's the third formers now, the fourth formers, the fifth formers, and college students. They have to take note. By the time the airport is complete and fully functional, you will be on the job market. Think of what you can contribute. There will be need for workers in a number of areas. So as you prepare yourself for the workforce, you need to develop more than academic competencies. And I say that too, we speak of what we have done for the teaching sector, but it's not only money. Our attitudes, our commitment, all this has to change. We need qualities of honesty, diligence, commitment. These are essential qualities. Without this, academia is almost useless. If you don't have those, being smart is useless. To the people in the vicinity of the airport, what about considering having a bed and breakfast facility, Mr. Speaker? The opportunities are endless. Endless opportunities. Some may surmise that government placed money aside, and where is the money? That's all they're asking. Where is the money? They're desperate, Mr. Speaker. They always ask. Well, look around you. You all took a bus, you all traveled over Dominica to see if you could see what CBI money is doing. Look at after Hurricane Maria, 20 years they said we'd be back on our feet. We were there in 2 years. Where did the money come from to do that? We were not getting money from anywhere. COVID-19, Tropical Storm Erica, that's where the money is. What do you see? Entire communities built and transformed. Resilient infrastructures, educational assistance, road rehabilitation, health and wellness centers, and the list goes on. And yes, we are moving on up. There's no place for reckless spending. Current world events beg us to face the realities. Prudence is the key. Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes. A pronouncement, somebody made a pronouncement of giving every household $28,000 if elected is an irresponsible statement. What data allows you to so speak? One can't just write a number or figure on a paper and expect it to transform into reality. This is mad thinking. How can we move forward? We must be united. We must maintain being the responsible government that we are. Why do you think that institutions like the World Bank, EU, are so willing to help? Mr. Speaker, it is not based on a dream or vision they receive and they run to make contact with the Dominica government. It is as a result of this government's track record, its vision for its people. That is why, without hesitation, we see the massive injection of funds from these institutions. This is Dominica, and this is not a time to bash your country. Dominica prospers, we all prosper. You know, and it was so heartwarming when the ex-Prime Minister of St. Lucia recently, when he conceded, 2 key words remain with me in his concession speech. He said, we love our country, love of country, and all he's asking for is peace in the country. And that is what we are looking for. And as we firmly affirm, 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land. For not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. Let me take this opportunity to condole with the families of Alson Ansel, William Pierre-Louis, and Clevenson Caesar. Many of you labor rights men know Clevenson. He was the only man in Dublin with nice gray eyes. So he has succumbed. May God strengthen the family at this time of grief. May God bless our land, the Commonwealth of Dominica, and its people as we tread on the road to building our past, solidifying our present, and securing our future. May God bless the Commonwealth of Dominica. May God continue to the work he has started in our leader, and he will not let him leave behind any unfinished tasks. And I fully support this 2021-2022 budget.
Mr. Speaker, permit me to greet the members of this honorable House invited guests here in attendance, listeners and viewers of the proceedings, my family and friends, my fellow Dominicans, good afternoon to all of you. Mr. Speaker, as a people with a history of oppression, a reality fraught with challenges we have had to overcome. Overcome to see another day, to see that glimmer of hope that was promised, that through our faith, through our enlightenment, we believe regardless of circumstance. It is because of that enlightenment of this Labour Party government, through the dedicated leadership of our dear Prime Minister, through our collective efforts, and by the grace of God, that we stand in defiance of every obstacle. Mr. Speaker, we shall not be moved. The people have chosen a progressive government to lead them through the times, and we have led through the times. From the very start, we have led when we inherited in 2000 an economy in squalor. Our administration very quickly summoned the prowess of the best economic architects and indulged the sacrifice of an entire nation to recover. Mr. Speaker, we shall not be moved. And this is exactly how we govern in times of greatest adversity. When Tropical Storm Erica wreaked havoc on our people, displacing an entire community, robbing lives, Mr. Speaker, even in our heartbreak, we huddled and said again, we shall not be moved. And when Hurricane Maria came on that dreaded September day, Mr. Speaker, stealing even more lives and changing the life of every survivor, bludgeoning our GDP by 226%, with damage costing billions, we summoned every fleck of courage and said, we shall not be moved. And from each of these challenges, Mr. Speaker, we harvest every wisdom to prepare for a better future. With a track record of delivering and persistence, in spite of the times, we navigate the murky waters. And that attitude is just what the good people of this nation need from their leaders, to bring hope, solutions, to bring assurance of a secure livelihood, and even more promise for tomorrow. And this is our pledge to the people, that with the greatest commitment we accept our duty with responsibility to labor with love and purpose. So that is why to build on the past, solidifying our present, and securing our future is not just a theme. It's not just the theme of this year's budget, but it's our labor of love, our social responsibility. So, Mr. Speaker, I rise. This is my second time that I am standing on my feet. Well, we all know what happened the first time. When a motion was passed and voting ensued and the opposition participated, Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the rules of the House. Mr. Speaker, after that, it was tragic. With typical temper tantrum and hooliganism, Mr. Speaker, I saw the member from Salisbury. He got so consumed with anger. Mr. Speaker, in my eyes, I saw him transformed into a cortical homunculus, Mr. Speaker, hurling threats and personal attacks, Mr. Speaker, saying he knows where we live, Mr. Speaker. Quite unparliamentary, pseudo-statesmanship, Mr. Speaker. We are not scared. Certainly, I am not scared, Mr. Speaker, because the God that I know and the God that I serve, Mr. Speaker, is also the God that protects me, Mr. Speaker. And the labor of love that we give is also the labor of love that we shall receive. Mr. Speaker, this time I stand on my feet not only as a proud member on this side, but as a patriot of Dominica, to firmly, unequivocally lend my support to this budget presentation, and to also proclaim my commitment to the implementation with greatest diligence. And I say this not only for myself, but for all the dedicated staff at the Ministry of Public Works and the Digital Economy, all our statutory bodies and agencies, every department, Mr. Speaker, all our contractors who toil daily. Our patriots are ready, Mr. Speaker. We are ready to continue the good work of Dominica. Mr. Speaker, a budget is never easy to construct. In our own lives, in our homes, we have to make choices, tough choices, based on need and priority, often scaling back, deferring, and selecting based on order of priority. Many Dominicans come from quite humble beginnings, where we were raised to stretch things, to make a meal from half a pound of rice or hand of fig, bananas, Mr. Speaker, not being sure of where the rest would come from, the meat I'm talking about, Mr. Speaker. These are the early lessons that some of us are taught on budgeting. It's doing the best with what you have, being creative with your resources, adding value to them, applying discretion, so that all shall eat while we save for tomorrow. It is investing in various mechanisms and being hopeful of generating projected revenue while being cautious of a range of eventualities. It is on that same premise our international airport is being built, Mr. Speaker. We are by no means a rich nation with an abundance of resources, but we know that this critical project is very much needed. We need it as a driver to create jobs, especially for those along the supply chain in tourism, in trade, and in agriculture. Mr. Speaker, this international airport will transform Wesley. It will transform Woodfordale. It will transform Palmtree and the surrounding areas. The airport will very likely become the main revenue source in these areas. It will facilitate movement of critical mass required to occupy and maintain the many hotels. This in turn will provide employment and create a buzz in our country. This has the opportunity to expand industries and innovation in various sectors. Mr. Speaker, my colleague, Member of Parliament for Wesley, is a very humble man. But I hope, Mr. Speaker, when his constituency or parts of it are transformed into a major airport city, I hope he remembers that I used to sit right next to him in this house. Mr. Speaker, I remember traveling to the USA as a little boy with my mother and my brothers. My father couldn't come because he had to stay home to work. My mother, a teacher outside of a 9 to 3:30 job at a primary school, would oftentimes stay from 4 to 6 to teach private lessons at grade 6 then, common entrance class. All of this to save money for 2 to 3 years for us to go on a 3-week vacation. Mr. Speaker, back then the cost of a ticket was anywhere from $800 to $1,300 US. A short vacation for a family of 5 would easily be $20,000, Mr. Speaker, alone for many. So today, when inflation drives the cost of everything, everywhere, it's quite relieving and pleasing. After announcing that American airline flights, direct flights, will commence in Dominica, we saw tickets slashed to $450 US, Mr. Speaker. Significant savings. Mr. Speaker, we know the airport will cost a lot, but we are satisfied that the rewards will be much greater. Yes. These gains, like cost reduction, will create more latitude for people to invest, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, empowering our people, improving livelihoods, That is exactly what we're about. This is why we recently increased the minimum wage to protect non-unionized workers, the underrepresented, Mr. Speaker. I am proud of this policy measure. Not only that, but in the way we do it. The way we did it to engage the unions, private sector, DIC. Mr. Speaker, collaboration, engagement is exactly what we're about, even to listen to the dissenting voices. Mr. Speaker, this move by the government is steeped in progressive Labour Party principles of our founders, and I am so proud to be part of this thinking. Mr. Speaker, the move to a new administrative framework for delivering of healthcare under the Dominica Hospital Authority is another progressive move for our people. We have made the investments in the infrastructure and the equipment. I speak to the 12 new health and wellness centers, the new Marigot Hospital, the complete refurbishment and expansion and enhancement of the Dominica China Friendship Hospital. Mr. Speaker, our people, our healthcare providers deserve the best facilities, and we are delivering just that. Mr. Speaker, I want to yet again express my sincere thanks to the Minister for Health and his entire team for their hard work, their sacrifice and efforts during this century's worst pandemic. Mr. Speaker, public officers are among the most unsung heroes that you will encounter. This government therefore remains committed to ensuring and delivering the required reforms and upliftment to more closely match their record of excellence. This is why the Ministry of Education moves swiftly to upgrade pay scales at secondary schools to create an additional 223 positions. Mr. Speaker, you have also heard in the presentation that the second largest subvention was for education. That shows how serious that this government is in the advancement of our children, of our youth, and of our educators. Investments have also been made in education infrastructure in many communities, Mr. Speaker. We must appreciate this equity that is being placed in the education sector. Mr. Speaker, personally, I'm happy about the $7 million investment that is being made to rebuild the Mao Primary School, Mr. Speaker. This hefty investment is quite needed and well appreciated, as the Mao Primary School has always been a pillar in this community. Mr. Speaker, I'm excited that this new facility will be adapted and outfitted with the most modern features to educate the new generation and realize greater outcomes. I want to take this time also to congratulate all the students in Dominica who sat and performed well with excellence in difficult circumstances in a COVID year in the Grade 6 National Assessment. Mr. Speaker, as a father myself, I'm hopeful about the opportunities for our children and for my own children's education. They are smarter than we are. That's the truth. They depend on us, so we should never let them down. Mr. Speaker, just like healthcare workers, I want to also appreciate and acknowledge the hard work of the teachers, the principals, the educators, my dear colleague, Minister of Education, and all those who champion the cause for education in Dominica. I want to sincerely thank them for all their hard work and their sacrifices. Mr. Speaker, this government, in its typical labor of love, is a government for all. Through the year, we have been engaging with various people and hearing their concerns. For me in particular, I've had the pleasure to engage with the youth, to engage with many millennials, people in the working class, among others. And because of that, I'm particularly grateful that students or their parents can now claim all of the interest being paid on their student loans. I myself, Mr. Speaker, I had a student loan, and while I'm extremely grateful for it, it was like a noose around my neck for 14 years. And I know it's the same for many of us in here. Same for my colleague here. I'm staring at my PS. He had this noose around his neck for 15 years. So between us, for 29 and a half years, Mr. Speaker. It's the same for the Prime Minister, my colleague in front of me, many of us here, Mr. Speaker. Paying quite exorbitant interest rates. And there are many others in the public service, in the private service, who are in the same situation. However, they are back here. They are back here serving with diligence and duty in the country. And they are the true patriots of Dominica. This administration identifies that sacrifice. And this is why you're seeing policies like this. And you also see payments of up to 40% on their outstanding balances. Not only that, Mr. Speaker, but we are also seeing continued education in tertiary education. This government is investing millions annually for tertiary and higher education and higher learning, Mr. Speaker. All of this in an attempt to remove the noose around the necks of the youth of Dominica. Mr. Speaker, I'm also pleased that there was tremendous work done on the structure for the education policy by many of my colleagues who are in here today. And this was in an attempt to create a better program, to find better focus for priority areas as we seek to foster a human resource suited and adapted for a dynamic Dominica. A Dominica requiring experts to build the physical infrastructure like our airport, major buildings, our roads, schools, hospitals, hotels. We need people to operate them and provide the highest level of service, hospitality, and excellence. We need thinkers and innovators in STEM, in information technology, to help solve and navigate around our modern challenges and to resolve our issues. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I was part of a discussion where I listened to two young men. One was expressing how happy he was, how contented he was about our new policy, which was the removal of the tax on income earned for residential rent. He was already calculating how much extra income, disposable income, that he would have. Mr. Speaker, on the other hand, the other gentleman, who was actually his tenant, was saying that he hopes that immediately these savings will translate to a decreased rent for him. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I couldn't help but to tell the guy, let the man enjoy his savings for at least 2 to 3 months, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when a tax deduction is allowed for those who already have or those who wish to acquire health insurance, this is a progressive move. Mr. Speaker, this not only promotes sustainable choices and decisions that promote health and wellness and health security, but it puts more money in the pockets of the people. Mr. Speaker, these interventions and policies are just what we need. Mr. Speaker, I can speak so much more on the measures and the programs in this budget, like the Future Housing Program, which is tailored specifically to suit people in the private sector, people in the public sector, particularly public officers who work hard, who toil daily, these unsung heroes. Mr. Speaker, this initiative, this program by the government seeks to provide many opportunities for them to own a home less than cost, because the government is not charging for the infrastructure, the roads, the fencing, the security, and all of that. And we're also seeking to also negotiate for low interest loans for them, Mr. Speaker. So that again is quite progressive. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased about the investments in sports, and not only that, but how we have been using the many facilities that we have. Look at what the member for Roseau did with the hard courts. Immediately, Mr. Speaker, to organize leagues, netball league, 3x3 basketball. Mr. Speaker, the place is buzzing. Mr. Speaker, Roseau is buzzing with activity. Mr. Speaker, we are seeing dunks, NBA-style dunks in the facility, Mr. Speaker. Never before have we seen this, and I'm so grateful. This is the type of engagement that our youth require, Mr. Speaker. This is the buzz, that sparkle that our city requires. Mr. Speaker, this might just be the place that the next global, international athlete might hone in their skills, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stayed up to watch Miss Tia Lafont. I'm proud of this young lady. And for me particularly, she has roots in Maho. Her mother is from Maho, Miss Ernestine Theophile Lafont. And her father, a good friend of my deceased father, Dr. Dorian Lafont. I know them very well. And Mr. Speaker, I'm so happy for her. She has made our country proud. She's our hero, regardless of the outcome of the events on Sunday. Mr. Speaker, I can go on talking about the numerous opportunities, but I think it's time for me to speak about the good work that we have done in public works over the last fiscal year and the many plans and programs that we have. Mr. Speaker, I walked with our report card today. I walked with it. Mr. Speaker, our ministry matters, Mr. Speaker. Here it is. Our ministry matters. Our ministry matters. And Mr. Speaker, in spite of the times, we have done a remarkable job. When I look at the projects planned for the last fiscal year, and I consider the implementation, I am satisfied. And this all in a limited fiscal space where our ministry had to implore the greatest innovation to do more with less and to make major sacrifices in the interest of strengthening a health sector in the middle of a pandemic, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my ministry has a mandate to administer and implement Dominica's physical and digital infrastructure and to manage our water resources. We operate by fostering the greatest sense of resilience from our planning through implementation. Our implementation has been so guided by our 2020-2025 strategic plan, which reflects national agenda, strategic sectoral documents, the Climate Resilience and Recovery Plan, and budget statements of past and present. All of these fancy documents, really, Mr. Speaker, in a nutshell, are to just say government policy. In our policies, we ensure that we address real-life challenges where we use infrastructure to underpin sectors and services that in turn impact humanity and livelihoods. In the last fiscal period, 2020-2021, amid COVID, Mr. Speaker, in the middle of a COVID year, we were able to do a lot. The China-aided West Coast Road Post-Erica Rehabilitation Project, this $50 million investment spanned 2 financial years and was completed in this fiscal year. This involved the rehabilitations of sections along the EO-Libla Highway to include the construction of 3 new bridges, 13 culvert crossings, safety features, and other drainage features. as an additional intervention. We then constructed 5 culvert crossings at various locations, retaining walls and drains at Platma and Grand Savan to further secure the Iwo-Libla Highway. In this fiscal year, we were also successfully able to complete the Mon Prosper rehabilitation project, an intervention, Mr. Speaker, that brought about great relief to the people of that community. Mr. Speaker, a 100-meter wall was also built along the Collier Highway. My colleague, the MP for Collier, expressed satisfaction. We're honored and always happy to work with her, Mr. Speaker. And we will see other walls in Collier as well, so you can look forward to that. We are also addressing edge failures along the Imperial Road. To date, we have stabilized 2 sections. During the fiscal year, the community of Bagatelle welcomed the completion of a new 50-foot segmented bridge. Mr. Speaker, you will recall the flooding events in that area. It caused significant damage to the existing Ford crossing. Mr. Speaker, while this new bridge is single lane, the substructure was built with sufficient capacity to bear the load of a composite bridge. It was also done in such a way so as to allow for easy extension to accommodate an additional lane upstream if required. The town of Portsmouth also got a facelift with the rehabilitation of Bedford Street. The road network in the community of Bells is receiving some major attention with the upgrade and improvements of some sections. We are also witnessing 2 bridges in Bells right now. One is substantially completed. I am understanding that only the painting is left, the other is completed. There's also work being done on a lower down on a retaining wall and a culvert. So the Member of Parliament for St. Joseph will be very happy. Now she has better access to be able to sell a dashing punch. Other major projects completed include the Checkall Road, improvements to the Despot Road and sections of the Cowham Feeder Road, and many others. These are all here in my report card, Mr. Speaker. You all can have a look at some point. Mr. Speaker, the value of these critical works, these certified works, came up to $31.5 million. And quite importantly also, Mr. Speaker, is the employment that was generated from these works. Over 250 direct construction jobs resulted. This is quite significant because each job, Mr. Speaker, is linked to a family. In a time when a job is more important, more valuable than any other time in our recent history. Mr. Speaker, you hear these high-impact projects completed, how much was spent, and how we engage our locals to improve their circumstance by empowering them. But we also have quite a few that are also ongoing, providing even more opportunities. Some are nearing completion and will be operational soon, while others, the more large-scale projects, will require more time for implementation. Mr. Speaker, our work at Public Works never ends. And I speak of the construction of a 12-meter box culvert in Berwickwa Granby that is nearing completion. Mr. Speaker, $2.06 million investment. I know my colleague from Granby is extremely pleased about that. He expressed that. 3 major road edge failures along the Warner Highway are also being addressed, Mr. Speaker. 2 out of the 3 interventions have already been completed at a value of $631,000. In the east of the island, the Old Good Hope Road is currently being rehabilitated. The original road served the communities of Good Hope and San Sauver, but this got compromised by a major event, a landslide over 30 years ago. So we're happy to spend $849,000 to rehabilitate this section, Mr. Speaker. In the Roseau Valley, the construction of the Cabanis Wall has commenced. This project is important for the residents of the valley, but it's also important to provide safe access for our cruise visitors and our tourists, so now that they can truly be safe in nature. This project is at a cost of $1.8 million, Mr. Speaker. In close proximity to this project, in the Coptal, Wharton, Waven area, road rehabilitation project is also ongoing. This $1.5 million investment is delayed, Mr. Speaker. However, we promise as a ministry we'll do everything within our capacity to ensure that this road is completed soon. And we're happy that this also provides another alternative to access the scenic views in the Roseau Valley. I am pleased to report that a new 24-meter bridge is being constructed in the village of Dubla. I need not say much more about that. The Member of Parliament for Collier expressed a gratitude, a tremendous and most sincere and earnest gratitude for this project, Mr. Speaker. The people were patient, and these are the types of projects, Mr. Speaker, that we at the ministry, we on this side, are happy to support. Mr. Speaker, work to construct the Hillsborough Bridge has commenced. The Hillsborough Bridges are two single-lane bridges providing access across the Lye River. Mr. Speaker, the member for St. Joseph also spoke of this one. We are happy to facilitate this work, Mr. Speaker. This investment is hefty. It comes at a cost of $8.9 million, but it is money that I know will be very well spent. And we certainly expect this work to be completed this year. Mr. Speaker, Lubia to Bagatelle Road, also known as the Mr. Speaker, right now, as we know, there have been delays also on this project, and mostly associated with the grant funding available and the extensive scope of this project, Mr. Speaker. This area, as you know, is extremely vulnerable, and it requires serious engineering attention. Right now, we have geotechnical drill rigs here along this road, and we're doing the necessary testing and investigation to ensure that we have a solution that is suited, that is tailored to this area. So, Honorable Daru and Regis, we have your back at the Ministry of Public Works. Mr. Speaker, the MP for St. Joseph is very happy today. And very happy today again for the 4-kilometer roadway that is going to be built from the Hillsborough Bridge to the York Valley Bridge. This, Mr. Speaker, an $11.5 million investment. Mr. Speaker, the contract has already been signed. Works will commence soon, and the ministry is engaging in a process where we are reviewing the evaluation reports for a tender for consultancy to supervise these works, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to put in perspective, I want to use this Hillsborough example to put into perspective the cost of these major interventions by the government. Mr. Speaker, $11 million. I had the pleasure to go to Ackley as a young boy many times, specifically an area called Casada Gardens. Mr. Speaker, this is an agricultural area. I know certain parts of the island seek to call themselves the agriculture belt. This is also an agriculture belt, Mr. Speaker. I had the pleasure to speak with the Minister of Trade, and he advised me that a box of banana is roughly $30 to $35 based on the market, the demands. Mr. Speaker, it would take us 330,000 boxes of bananas to be able to pay for this project, Mr. Speaker, at a cost of $35 for a box of bananas. Mr. Speaker, a box of bananas is about 10 inches tall. Mr. Speaker, if we were to stack this 330,000 boxes of bananas, Mr. Speaker, That would be 84 kilometers high.
Wow.
84 kilometers. Mr. Speaker, a drive from Scottshead to Tatan is 63 kilometers, Mr. Speaker. Just to put that into perspective. Yes. So we would still need to drive over banana boxes to pay for that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to give this perspective to appreciate $11 million, because we keep on saying high figures, but I do not know for sure if we understand the investment that this government is making in Dominica. Mr. Speaker, the Daily Spitted Savannah Road is another road where work is currently ongoing. We have spent over $200,000 clearing. There is a section that requires a bridge that is going to come at a cost of slightly over $2 million, Mr. Speaker, 30-meter bridge. And we are willing to make that investment for the people of the area, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we know the challenges driving along certain areas, particularly along the West Coast. We speak of Mao, Massac, Newtown, Soufriere, Scottshead, Mr. Speaker. So I'm speaking now about a project which was in last year's budget estimates. It's a road project in Mao from the L&O Guest House to the Credit Union. I just want to tell the people that we have already signed the contracts, and we are going to collaborate with the Village Council to execute this project for this area. Mr. Speaker, we believe in collaboration and working with the people, especially when they're interested in working. And this provides the ideal opportunity to provide employment and a solution for this area, Mr. Speaker. Another important project, Mr. Speaker, is the North Coast Road Project, Marigot to Portsmouth Road Feasibility Study. It's also ongoing. And this, Mr. Speaker, will provide the resilience that we need to facilitate the various linkages in the north as we seek to provide access and the necessary aesthetics for a road associated with an airport to link all the hotels and all the services, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the first phase will inform the construction of 36.1 kilometers of roadway from Hatton Garden to Borough Square. And I am happy again to report that the ministry has already received the option reports from the consultants, and we are in discussions right now, Mr. Speaker, as we plan to move forward to the next stages on this project. Mr. Speaker, while the East Coast project is not being implemented within the Ministry of Public Works, it would be remiss of me, Mr. Speaker, if I did not say something. Mr. Speaker, while I said that the Hillsborough Road, the road from the Hillsborough Bridge to the York Valley Bridge would be $11 million, Mr. Speaker, well, this one is $126 million. And we are very pleased about the implementation of this road, Mr. Speaker. They are doing an excellent job in the Ministry of Environment and DVRP, Mr. Speaker. And we can all look forward to a robust and resilient road network in the eastern part of the community, of the country, providing the necessary linkages again to services. Mr. Speaker, after spending so many millions in physical infrastructure and making so many capital investments, we must take care of our road infrastructure. We must appreciate, Mr. Speaker, the economic development, the growth in our road sector. And routine maintenance must be done in a timely fashion in order to ensure that these roads meet their design lifespan. Mr. Speaker, we have spent in the last fiscal year $10 million in general road maintenance, and the distribution is as follows. Suppliers of asphalt, $2 million. Asphalt patching, $2 million. Road clearing works, $630,000. Clearing of rivers and ravines, $446,000. Clearing of drains and culverts, $443,000. Minor road construction and drainage works, $2.7 million. other routine maintenance, $269,000 vegetation maintenance and management, $1.2 million. Mr. Speaker, one must appreciate these interventions. They are a collection of numerous small interventions providing over 605 jobs to various contractors and people. Mr. Speaker, these require many site visits and assessments by our staff. These are the jobs that you don't get high acclamation or credit for, Mr. Speaker, but they are truly important. Mr. Speaker, just a few days ago, I got a call at about 10 o'clock. There was a rock fall in Makushri, and one of our contractors, Public Works Corporation, responded. 10:30 p.m. That is the type of commitment, Mr. Speaker, of many of the contractors we are associated with, Mr. Speaker. Collectively, these people make it safe for us to journey along our roads. Mr. Speaker, going forward, we pledge to continue all our ongoing projects, and we also commit to aggressively maintaining our roads. Mr. Speaker, to build dynamic Dominica, we accept that we have a lot more work to do. In 12 months, we certainly cannot do everything, but we'll do our best and we'll certainly respond to every emergency. Mr. Speaker, we propose to move a few projects from the design phase to the implementation phase, and some of these include, firstly, the Emsall Bridge. But I shall say no more on this because the Member of Parliament for Roseau South said everything about the bridge. So all I am saying is to add my voice that it is coming, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Dodan interventions, there's some work that we have committed to do, but it has proven to be challenging, Mr. Speaker, because there's a need for retention of the slope, but it is very near to the main road, and it also serves as the area that is really the primary access for the community. Seeing that I mentioned the North Coast Road is passing right along that roadway as well. So currently we're reviewing the designs of these Dodan interventions to ensure that they're in line with the requirements of the North Coast Road, seeing that they will be in the same general vicinity. But Mr. Speaker, we're doing our best to ensure that this project is facilitated during this fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, in Penville, I know the Prime Minister doesn't ask for much, but we will complete the works in Penville to protect the roadway sections. And I am understanding that work has commenced for some of these interventions. Mr. Speaker, there are some projects that we're undertaking. It's more or less like recurring projects. And we're promising that we'll continue to implement these projects in this fiscal year. And I'm speaking of the solar and wind-powered street lighting project, or guardrails and road safety measures. Mr. Speaker, we did one intervention in Laplin, like the Member of Parliament spoke of. The next one will be in Granby. I know you'll be very pleased for that, Honorable Regis. And we have done an assessment of all our roadways. Our road techs, our engineers, they went around assessing safety and security. So we have identified all the vulnerable areas, and we plan to implement the various safety measures required to protect the lives of the citizens of this country. Mr. Speaker, by way of some of new infrastructure projects, we speak to Roseau enhancement. We are making the necessary plans right now to tailor up the implementation schedule to meet with the various stakeholders so we can commence implementation of works on Great George Street, and Independence Street, and Virgin Lane sidewalks, Mr. Speaker. And this is truly exciting for the city. And while we're doing all this investment in the city, we know the challenges with traffic. So we're proposing also in this fiscal year that we'll do a traffic management study for the city. And, 1 minute. 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 1 min And Mr. Speaker, we will heed, we will acknowledge, and we will take the advice of the technical professionals. So if they say we need street lights near the area where Land and Survey's old DBMC exists, then so we shall propose, and so we shall do. Mr. Speaker, these are exciting times for us here in Dominica. We are living that dream. We are on our way to the mountaintop, Mr. Speaker, and I am truly happy to support that thrust. Mr. Speaker, the water sector. This also forms a very important part of my portfolio. Mr. Speaker, during this fiscal year, 2020-2021, DOWASCO has embarked on projects geared towards improving access to water and reducing the vulnerability of our water supply systems to intense rainfall and flooding events. These projects have been supported by the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica.
15 more minutes.
Thank you. And various donor agencies. The following are projects that have been completed during this fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, Bagatelle Water Supply Rehabilitation Project, it came at a cost of $1.1 million. Phase 1 of the Water Sector Strategic Development Plan. This involved a study which identified various vulnerabilities in water systems, supply lines, and also making recommendations for improvements. The third water supply project, also, Mr. Speaker, Water Area 1 network was upgraded. The total cost of this intervention was EC $32.7 million. Mr. Speaker, and many others, including the Bellevue-Chopin Petite Savane Resettlement Water Supply, at a cost of $2.57 million, the Mon Prosper Water Supply Phase 1 for $1.8 million, Mr. Speaker. So you have it. This equity will certainly, Mr. Speaker, bring the necessary resilience and the gains in the water sector. And we plan to invest further to provide the necessary benefits and to improve the services in the quality of water and in the supply of water to enhance the lives of the people in Dominica. So great job, DOWASCO. And I'm saying that to also put this into perspective, I'm saying great job because what I really need to say also, Mr. Speaker, is if we add the damage from Tropical Storm Erica to the damage of Hurricane Maria, Mr. Speaker, in the water sector, we have a combined loss of over $150 million, Mr. Speaker. And all these upgrades are being made, and the government have not for once, never, have we come forward to the people to ask them or to tell them of any increase in the fees for the supply of water. Mr. Speaker, I will now discuss the digital economy. Though much emphasis has been placed on the development of the physical infrastructure and the maintenance of our public infrastructure, my ministry, with the collaboration of the Ministry of Telecoms and Broadcasting, also spent significant time creating a platform for the successful launch of the digital economy. Mr. Speaker, you heard the details in Senator George's presentations. Mr. Speaker, we are ready. Mr. Speaker, the government's built-for-purpose fiber optic infrastructure network is now complete and currently connecting various government sites across Dominica and provides telecommunications, internet, data, cloud, and other ICT services to all other sites. And this is important because the robust infrastructure laid down is in fact the launching pad for the digital economy. Mr. Speaker, please permit me to set the tone for the digital economy. I remember the day of our swearing in December. On the heels of an election, we were precipitously perched at the cliffhanger of the year 2019. staring at the pastures of a new age with our perceived vision for 2020 and the years beyond. Much to our chagrin, Mr. Speaker, the world in its typical posture of self-fulfilling hubris reminded us of how minuscule our role is in the order of life. Mr. Speaker, who would have known that in 17 months, nearly 200 million people would have been infected with COVID-19, resulting in over 4 million deaths worldwide? Who would have known, Mr. Speaker? One thing we know for sure is that our lives have forever changed. The way we work, the way we socialize, the way we do business, the way we go to church and receive our education, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, what you have seen was a spurn in innovation, Mr. Speaker. When you see the utility companies, Mr. Speaker, pushing for online bill payments, something has changed. I thought they enjoyed the long lines, Mr. Speaker. The churches have now found a way to facilitate online worship. Asa Banton, Colin XP, DJ Rio. All the entertainers, Mr. Speaker, are pursuing online jump up as an alternative. We saw for a period that classes were facilitated online. We have seen delivery services take off in Dominica, those like quick delivery, Mr. Speaker. We have Shop DM, an online store selling mostly Dominican products from the comfort of your home. You can now make purchases, Mr. Speaker, and you can buy a range of products from clothing, hair products, dashing from Bells, Mr. Speaker, bread from Cassava Man, you name it. We have Mlaja, Mr. Speaker, Dominica's first mobile wallet, launched by the credit union movement, and we should be proud of this, Mr. Speaker. We have seen how Mlaja allows credit union members and also non-members from the comfort of their mobile homes, their devices, to make contactless payments to merchants, send or receive money, raise funds for charity, and even facilitate wedding registries, Mr. Speaker. Mlaja will allow users to pay their utility bills from the comfort of their handsets. This brings accessibility, flexibility, reliability, and affordability to Dominica, and will assist businesses on the e-commerce front through their checkout solutions. And we wholeheartedly welcome these alternatives and innovations, Mr. Speaker, by the private sector, and we will continue to partner with all of them, the Mlajans and the others, with their upcoming initiatives. Mr. Speaker, our very own ICT unit has been part of this trust. We've created so many portals, programs, and apps in this time period. To name a few: Curfew Pass, Travel Facilitation, Scheduler, the e-payments. Mr. Speaker, we have collaborated very closely with Ministry of Governance on this one. And Mr. Speaker, the ICT department is happy to continuously deliver the services required to take full advantage of this new thrust with the digital economy. Mr. Speaker, swiftly we have gone from hearing the term digital economy for the first time to now living, experiencing, and encouraging the benefits of it. And I applaud all the pioneering companies and individuals who have done their best to advocate and implement these novel ideas. Mr. Speaker, we have always had a digital economy in Dominica. But now I firmly believe that we are living in a time where we don't have a choice anymore but to accept and embrace this. And this is why this government chose to lead this front in a structured way. To ensure that the targets set by government are met, the ministry capitalized on a World Bank Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, and along with the Ministry of Finance.
5 more minutes.
10, please.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Honourable Minister be granted an additional 10 minutes to complete his present budget.
It has been moved and seconded that the Honourable Minister Laville be granted an additional 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. You are given an additional 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To ensure that the targets set by government are met, the ministry capitalized on this $28 million financing opportunity, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this will transform Dominica into the most digitally advanced society in the English-speaking Caribbean. The project aims to develop core foundations to enable digitalization of government and improved access and adoption of digital services, skills, and technologies among individuals and various businesses. We will therefore implement strategies that focus on creating a digitally enabled environment. As we seek to digitize services, Mr. Speaker, we are mindful of cyber attacks and various threats that can severely impact the provision of digital services and online transactions. We'll therefore establish a national computer emergency response team to support the development of national-level cybersecurity capabilities that will guard against these attacks and various threats. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we'll focus on digital government infrastructure, platforms and services, as well as digital skills and technology adoption, with the goal of better equipping individuals and businesses for the jobs of the economy, the jobs of the future. We know, Mr. Speaker, that these will spur growth and productivity. Mr. Speaker, we have also established a PIU. This was a requirement under this project. Mr. Speaker, they have already moved to commence the procurement process of 8,000 digital devices for students, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this will enable the students to take advantage of various e-learning opportunities. It is anticipated that these devices will arrive very soon. Actually, we had expected them to arrive before, but you don't receive an order of 8,000 digital devices on any given day, Mr. Speaker. So we're experiencing some challenges with the supply of these. Another major activity under the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project is the development and implementation of a national health management information system. This system will collect, store, manage, and transmit patients' information electronically, Mr. Speaker, to support healthcare decisions. For instance, if a patient at the Portsmouth Hospital is transferred to the Dominica China Friendship Hospital, the records of the patient will be available electronically at the Dominica China Friendship Hospital ahead of the patient's arrival. Mr. Speaker, the PIU has already engaged critical stakeholders such as the new hospital authority and the management of the Ministry of Health, Wellness, and New Health Investment on the details of this innovation. The Ministry of Public Works and the Digital Economy has pursued other digital initiatives with the support of UNDP. We spearheaded a digital readiness assessment using a tool that provided for higher level insights into Dominica's digital strengths and weaknesses. Mr. Speaker, we are now using the outcomes of this to develop our digital economy strategy. and we're working with the best experts in this area. Right now, we are collaborating very closely with an expert from Estonia, Mr. Speaker. As you know, Mr. Speaker, Estonia is one of the leaders in digital economy, post the independence in the early 90s, and this is one of the key people who facilitated the digital transformation. So we're certainly very happy to have someone of this high caliber working with us and leading us on our new thrust. Mr. Speaker, with people being the key pillars of a digital economy, Mr. Speaker, this strategy is certainly focused to create jobs that will directly benefit the people. With that being said, the youth has always been on our mind. Mr. Speaker, I know the word comes first, digital before economy, but economy is very important and dear to my heart. So with that, Mr. Speaker, from day one, we have been focused on providing employment and opportunities for the youth. And this is why Work Online Dominica was born, Mr. Speaker. And in our first program, the pilot, a collaboration with UNDP and Israel, Mr. Speaker, we had quite a few applications. We could only train 60 in this first pilot, Mr. Speaker. We're very pleased to report that 55 of these trainees, Mr. Speaker, had already received gigs and opportunities even prior to the graduation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just to elaborate a bit on the impact of that, I know a young lady who was trained and facilitated under this training program. Mr. Speaker, the lady earns $800 a week. Wow. She's so exceptional, like many other Dominicans in the delivery of the services, that she is afforded more than 24 hours a day to work. Now, what does that mean, Mr. Speaker? No person can work for more than 24 hours a day. She has now become a trainer, Mr. Speaker, and she is recruiting others to facilitate this company. So other people are now receiving $800 per week, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when I listen to a young mother from the Kalinago territory who has her children at home, who was unable to work, who was able to access the training opportunities provided by Work Online Dominica, and she can now work, Mr. Speaker, that is truly remarkable, to provide empowerment for people, no matter what the demographic, no matter what the circumstance, Mr. Speaker. This is a solution for all. Mr. Speaker, currently we are facilitating the second cohort of trainees. Another group of 61 have been informed, and we're already getting great news, great feedback from this. So this right here is the opportunity to empower many more Dominicans. Mr. Speaker, this budget, our programs, provide opportunities for all. And I encourage all of us to embrace them, Mr. Speaker, to take advantage of all these opportunities for empowerment that are right before our feet. Mr. Speaker, we have developed a great relationship with the people. We have built relationships of reliability and trust with the people. Mr. Speaker, this starts from the policy level and it filters right down through the ministry, Mr. Speaker. From our framework to administration to implementation, Mr. Speaker, we understand the needs of the people. And many of these policies have over the years been effectively converted into projects of high impact. Projects, Mr. Speaker, that change the lives of many people. Mr. Speaker, I want to acknowledge all the staff in our Ministry of Public Works and Digital Economy. They are also unsung heroes, Mr. Speaker. From the Technical Services Division, who facilitate our policies, to ICT, to the Digital Economy Unit, Electrical Division, or statutory corporations and commissions, namely the WASCO, Public Works Corporation, and the Independent Regulatory Commission. Mr. Speaker, all of them, Mr. Speaker, they are also unsung heroes. And I'm very happy and honored to have the pleasure to work with these people of diligence and duty. Mr. Speaker, I want to especially thank the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Roland Roy. Mr. Speaker, a young man himself who is completely dedicated to his work, completely dedicated to delivery of public service, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, he espouses the greatest diligence, and I am honored, I am extremely honored, Mr. Speaker, to work with him. I want to also recognize the Cabinet Secretary, the FS, other permanent secretaries, Mr. Speaker, who also foster that type of diligence and collaboration, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, permit me to once again to commend the contractors who work with the Ministry of Public Works. Mr. Speaker, I want them to know that they are part of our Public Works family, and I'm very grateful for the way they come out every day to support us in the ministry. Mr. Speaker, I am very happy for the opportunities that present themselves for these contractors as we move forward to build the dynamic Dominica. Mr. Speaker, this honor to serve my country is one of the highest honors of my life. Mr. Speaker, I'm truly and indeed humbled. I wish to thank my family, my friends, the great people in my community of Maho, and all Dominicans, Mr. Speaker. Without them, there is no opportunity and no honor to serve. I wish to thank the Honorable Prime Minister for entrusting me to serve in this capacity, and also for his quiet but steadfast leadership by example. Thanks to all my colleagues, Mr. Speaker, for their tremendous support, their collaboration, their advice throughout this last fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, this team is truly amazing.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, no one apart from ourselves, our families, our children will ever see the commitment, the sacrifice, the focus, the poise, the diligence to duty and service of these people on this side of the house, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this right here is the only team that can truly build on the past, solidify the present, and secure the future of Dominica, Mr. Speaker, with these few words, Mr. Speaker, I pledge my resounding support, Mr. Speaker, to this budget as presented. I pledge my unwavering commitment to the delivery and the fulfillment, the implementation of all the plans and the programs as captured in this project. Mr. Speaker, may God bless the plans of this government. May God bless the programs of this government. May God bless the good people of Dominica. God bless Dominica, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Speaker, I move that this Honorable House be adjourned until the 3rd day of August, Tuesday, the 3rd day of August at 10 a.m.
It has been moved and seconded that this House be adjourned until Tuesday, 3rd August at 10 a.m. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. House stands adjourned until August 3rd at 10 a.m.
Mr. Speaker.